All right, everybody, welcome once again to another Worcestery Council Theatre 3000. I'm Bryan O'Donnell. This is Bill Shaner, Brendan Melican.
Yo,
gentlemen, how are we?
What's up?
Bill, I know we said this in the chat backstage, but your hair looks so fucking good right now. It's crazy.
it's amazing.
You know why? It's greasy.
Nice.
So good for the camera. Bad
There
for
you
real
go.
life. Gross in real life. On camera, pretty good.
Fine as hell.
You can't have it both ways.
How you guys doing today? Are you enjoying your World War III yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going great. I'm personally excited for when the rockets are coming over my house.
Yeah.
It'll be kind of like COVID, remember? With all the fireworks going off all the time.
That's right. Well, actually, I didn't see a lot of fireworks during COVID because I installed an iron dome over my house.
Smart.
Yeah. It was some would say louder than the fireworks, but I'm not going to be victimized, so I won't live in fear. So interesting things going on today. We have vice presidential debate tonight. That should be plenty stupid.
It's gonna be so stupid.
I mean, I think we'll probably be well out of the way of it because what's on the agenda?
Well,
Three things of consequence.
hold on. I'm gonna turn that stupid fan on here.
We have metal detectors again, right? That's pretty much the only thing that is.
Yeah.
Metal detectors again, but also the city manager is 5-year master plan, which Mike didn't capture in his agenda preview, but that might be a full presentation.
That's true.
And it's a 94-page document. So that might be a while, but maybe not. Maybe we'll keep going with the city manager doesn't do any presentations at all sort of theme that we have going for the city council usually.
I love that.
Yeah. And then Mady Morales
plan for the next 5 years, or is it just taking them 5 years to put this together?
A lot of the stuff is stuff that has already happened. I noticed reading through it, but it is supposedly a plan for the next 5 years.
Success.
Interesting. Yeah, Eric, that's just gotcha. Brianna Woodward painted this painting of a possum swearing is what it's doing actually. I have another painting of hers back there that says I love crime. So hit up Brianna, not a damn cheese on Instagram for all your painting commission needs.
I have an event to plug now and then later. On Saturday, Katie is doing Boogie for Boobies at Ralph's Rock Diner. We're going to have the Glitter Boys down, and it's going to be a fun time. Tickets for that. All the money is going to breast cancer research, and it's just Katie wanting to throw a party, after everything, to sort of bookmark it. So tickets are in the chat. You can get them there.
Oh yeah.
And we got a run of shirts made.
Ooh.
This is the back. I danced my tits off with the Glitter Boys.
Those look good, dude.
Yeah, they look really good. And then I got a little globe on the front.
Hell yeah.
Available only at the event. They're probably gonna sell out there. So come early. And then so you guys know how there's the time to fuck banner at upstairs at Ralph's. Katie made,
dude, I saw this
stained glass of that sign. And just today made the no attachment.
Oh,
so
wow.
Slide no, because that's how that neon sign works up there too. Like you slide no, and that is a raffle. That's going to be a raffle, so you can you buy a ticket, you're automatically entered into the raffle, but you could also buy more if you go to Big Sass Glass on Instagram.
And if as somebody that owns a piece of stained glass by Katie, it's unbelievable work. It looks great on screen. It looks even better in person.
Yeah, she does a really good job with it.
Hell yeah.
But
I want to plug this also, if that's cool, for Thursday night, this Thursday, down at New Tradition. We're screening Hubie Halloween again. We did it last year. We're doing it again. A live commentary, quote along, maybe kind of sort of a drinking game. It's going to turn into, and
drinking while gaming.
Yeah. And there's going to be lots of opportunities to yell things out like piss and other fun stuff to say. So the movie's free. Mamaru's doing a special menu. And if you're in the New Tradition, it fucking rules. It's great. It's a great space. It's a great bar. It's coffee shop, and if you're up early enough, people should come down and check it out. It's gonna be a really fun time. And yeah, I'm excited. If I'm uploading the video now, but if anyone has seen, I posted a link earlier on YouTube. Every year, for all of October, I watch Hubie Halloween every day. 21 days of Hubie Halloween. This year, I decided to start a podcast about it. So, starting this week, I put up a preview video today. This week and until the end of the month, I'm going to be doing a couple episodes a week, hopefully, depending on guests and stuff like that, about the best movie ever made. Let's just say it.
Come right up there. Except for Megalopolis. I heard that's better.
I am fascinated to see that. We'll have to find out. But yeah, come on down. Come hang out. And it'll be more fun than watching the news.
Yeah. I
bet. Oh, they still haven't.
I've never been to New Tradition, the bar New Tradition. So I started to come down and check that out. Yeah.
They're doing a great job down there. They got a bunch of stuff planned, it looks like. Oh, Brendan, they're asking to get the gameplay a little bit bigger. If you wouldn't probably, I'm assuming after this round.
I can probably do this without. There we are.
Wow, look at that. That's a real professional, right?
Look at that. I'm very excited to see how dumb the new Joker is. I'm pretty psyched on it. Oh, look at that, Bill.
Oh yeah.
Look at the hat.
They already got it. That's awesome. I sent those out yesterday. Gotta get your hat. There's only 3 left, I think, in the Worcester Sucks merch store. BillShaner.BigCartel.com. 3 or 4 left. So I'm probably not gonna do a run of those again because in order to make it worth it, I had to use my first time discount from the printing company. The second run will be a lot more expensive and will make it financially unfeasible to do. So these hats are the only ones ever getting printed. Go to BillShaner.BigCartel.com and get yours.
Hell yeah. Bill, do you have the Zoom link?
I can get it.
I think we decided that was better last week, right? Or last show.
Yeah.
Let me bring up the subtitles on this one. So on the Facebook version. So they haven't started yet, but they got the loading screen up. Yeah, get your street cred. Get your Worcester Sucks street cred.
Eric, you should have it soon. As I sent them out yesterday. All right, I opened the Zoom meeting. I have to put my email in. Nazi City Commentator 42069. And
I believe, is that X-Force Deadpool?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I have the Zoom pulled up. They haven't started yet on that.
I am a toddler.
I have the live transcript turned on, so that should be pretty smooth sailing. So we'll try to do it on Zoom first, and if it doesn't work,
then we can always fall back on Facebook, much like your uncles and aunts. Worst case scenario, you can find us on Facebook.
Oh wait, what was the deal with this when you're on Chrome? Oh, I have to open it in the browser.
Yes. I still haven't gone yet, though.
No.
Not even getting any audio bleeding through. We can't get any previews of dumb stuff that Mo Bergman's going to say tonight.
How do you do that? How do you launch it in the browser?
Should be able to click on launch meeting, and then it's going to ask you to open the app and just tell it not to.
Oh. No.
I could try it too if you want to send me the Zoom link.
Oh, wait. Join from your... Okay, cool. Join from your browser. Look at that. This is great. We're learning every day. Every day I learn something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dio, there is a learning curve. It's not that steep though. If you commit to getting killed a bunch of times, and you play on unranked too to start with, that's always
yeah.
Although I switched over to ranked, and then
I just jumped into a build lobby, and I think anyways, and yeah, it is. I have no idea what I'm doing. If it wasn't a zero build, I would be completely lost in this game.
Jess, can I play Fortnite on your new work computer?
Wow. That's a serious question. Putting her on the spot, too.
You know, now she has to answer. I mean, for many reasons, let's hope your bosses aren't watching this. So it should be fine. It should be fine to answer, honestly. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let me see if I can pull it up. But I did just see it. It looks.
Where is Travis? Is he bailing on us tonight?
He's probably working on another logo for the library.
Yeah.
Did they post it on Instagram? They have not debuted it yet on there.
Oh, there's Hunchback Travis. There's the old Hunchback Travis.
There he is. Yeah, great job, Trav.
To the Worcester City Council meeting.
There we go.
Pledge allegiance and the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, that's not coming out of the right audio thing.
Let me pull it up.
It's coming out of. Oh, here we go. Oh, idiot. Oh, okay, hold on. I got this.
I hate computers, you know?
I got it. All right. I love the limiter they have on the Star Spangled Banner now. So like almost all of it gets cut off from the.
Like I obviously like there's nothing else that could happen during the meeting that would ever hit the limiter.
Right.
But it's just very funny that you should raise it. I think you should raise your hand. See if they'll call on you. Yeah, it's all the way knocked out now. We're not getting any of it.
Well, I muted the screen.
Okay, good. All right, good call.
I was sick of listening to it. All right.
Roll call. Councilor Bergman.
Here.
Councilor Calorio.
Here.
Councilor Haxhiaj.
Here.
Councilor King.
Here.
Brennan,
Councilor
you playing
Carlson.
duos or
Councilor
squad?
Nguyen.
Squads.
Councilor Hader.
So
Here.
Councilor Pasillo. Councilor Russell. Here. Council Toomey
Here.
and Mayor Petty.
Here, approve of the minutes. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered.
Let's see if
They
this
are-
makes
Participation,
the
person may
captions-
speak for no more than 2 minutes and they am
Bigger.
during the agenda, so state your
Oh,
name,
look at that.
city of residence, and item number.
Thank you. Fred Nathan Worcester. So on 8, C, D, E, F, G, on
feel-
the lowering
I
the
feel a
speed limit to
tone
20
coming
miles
through
an
from
hour,
the council that
I'm gonna say
says
right
we're
now,
only
you
going to
could
be here for
limit
a little bit.
the speed at 5 miles an hour on those stretches. But I've got to say here, and I would hope
Here is
everyone
the
in this
agenda.
audience would back me up on it. If you're someone who's driving and you have your cell phone in your hand, put it down. There is nothing that could be that
Oh.
important that you can't get by for a couple of minutes until
mouth.
you get
I like to think that
enough.
every time Fred
We
sees
have
someone driving with a
laws
cell phone in their
on
hand,
books.
it's me taking a picture of Fred walking while I'm driving.
But unfortunately, we don't have enough
The
cops to
defense.
enforce it. Maybe we can hire
Whenever
some
I
more
see Fred
police.
Nathan, I am immediately touching
Um,
my cell phone while driving. I'm trying to open up the picture.
8K.
I'm the
the
most
item
distracted
about the
driver I'll
APRA
ever am
funds
because of Fred Nathan.
And giving more money to the BIPOC, which is
BIPOC.
Black.
BIPOC.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I'm a little bit confused about something.
Yes, say it. Fred.
There was an
Fridays
institution
look-
here, the MLK Center, and unbeknownst to my mentioning it some months ago, I thought it was still open. I
What a
didn't
good
realize it was
job
closed.
saying a smart sentence.
So whatever happened to that property? What is it being used for? And why is there not? Why is he still have the sign up there, but there's nothing that's being done in there that benefits anybody in the community? If it was sold off by someone and they're using it for something other than helping the people, then it needs to go back to the people who have that. I mean, we have the MLK Boulevard that was named after Martin Luther King. So
No way.
it would be nice if, since we have that, that would be more to help the people of color and get their fair
Getting
shake
there,
if
Fred.
they're not.
One
Keep
step
going,
Um,
dog. Keep going. This is great.
Just curious.
Any more thoughts on people of color, Fred?
Absolutely. I would never go overboard here. 9.39A. Just curious what the Worcester Housing Authority fee waiver is. And I believe I got one more. Oh,
Okay.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Fred. Appreciate it.
I know you appreciate it,
Thank you. Okay.
but do you really appreciate it?
Whoa!
Anybody else?
Do
Fred-
not let him see Joker. Do not.
What's your name, city residence, and item number?
Fred Hampton Nathan right there. Jesus.
Name.
I'm the people.
Residents and
I'm
item
not
number.
Frost,
big.
10 Oxford Street, Worcester, in support of 8K, of course. Attorney Scott Harshbarger in 1990, 1992 had well documented the targeting of predatory loans to communities of color. We saw it this round at the beginning of the 2000s, and it set up communities of color to be wealth stripped, unstable housing, and because of the stress and health, connected with foreclosures and the stress of a loan you can't afford, communities of color had also been hit harder in terms of health issues. So who was set up coming into COVID? You have unstable housing when you're supposed to quarantine. You've already got health issues, so you're likely to be more susceptible to COVID. And so why isn't the COVID money coming back to the communities that had already been wealth stripped coming into COVID? Yeah, we need the ARPA money to rebuild our communities. Those foreclosures, that money's not staying here. It's going to the mega banks. And if we want to rebuild and put people back where they should have been before we had COVID, we need help dealing with the communities that were targeted on purpose geographically, as well as in terms of race. White person in a predominantly community of color area of Worcester, you were harder hit by foreclosures too. So we asked for money for WAF, but regardless of who it goes to, the money should come back to the communities that traditionally have been stripped of that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me read your item. Hang on. one second.
Good
You want
evening.
to speak on your item? Oh,
Yes.
okay, hang
Can
on
I?
one second. Yep. Let me just read it first, okay?
Okay.
Mayday Morales requests the council request city manager consider directly designating the balance of the remaining $44 million of the American Rescue Act funds after the current pending contracts are completed to buy park-led organizations who directly provide services and resources to those who were most affected by the pandemic.
Thank
What's your
you.
name?
Good evening. Maida Morales, City of Worcester resident. ARPA funds. For my review of the ARPA funds dashboard on the city website, just last night, public asset and infrastructure has a little over 3.2 million for open spaces and parks. Lead poisoning removal, 416,000. Public health, 989,000 for ESOL classes. 145,000 for broadband and accessibility. And we know how much our scholars were disproportionately impacted by lack of broadband and technology during the pandemic. 850,000 to Greater Worcester Foundation for the implementation of the 219 culture plan. 100,000 for youth initiatives. Thank you so much for the 1.5 million given to community providers who serve our youth. As we know, they are part of the most impacted and disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The objective of the ARPA funds, as stated in the final rule document from the U.S. Department of Treasury, states, in addition, the final rule provides an expanded set of households and communities that are presumed to be impacted and disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, thereby allowing recipients to provide responses to a broad set of households and entities without requiring additional analysis. Further, the final rule provides a broader set of uses available for those communities as part of the COVID public health and economic response, including making affordable housing, childcare, early learning, and services to address learning loss during the pandemic. Why are we creating so many barriers to impacted and disproportionately impacted families in our communities in order for them to benefit from these funds? The current requirements from the city reimbursement, need for fiscal agent, gathering of data, do not create an atmosphere of inclusivity and equity. For smaller Black and Brown businesses, this creates yet another barrier, another disadvantage. Sorry. Businesses and grassroots organizations who do not have capacity and do we really need all those forms? Not according to the final rule from the U.S. Treasury. Nothing in the final rule or ARPA guidance states that the funds need or must be dispersed through reimbursement. We know small grassroots organizations have cash flow issues, barriers. Finding a fiscal agent can leave an organization out of the running for these forms. It was impossible to find assistance sometimes. I know, I tried to connect people. Barriers. The current rules being imposed on recipients are HUD rules and not the Department of Treasury guidelines, as stated in the final rule document. How do we reduce these barriers and promote access? We need to find a happy medium. Award recipients can provide different types of certification of those that they have served without imposing unnecessary requirements for those they are serving. In the end, according to the city website and contracts, in the end, those who are supposed to be the beneficiaries are ones being left behind. Those in qualified census tracts, households that make 50% of income, whose income is less than 60% of the AMI. Disproportionately impacted households, which include Latinos, Black African Americans, and American Indian and Alaska Native. Those receiving federally funded income restricted programs benefits, and low income defined by the U.S. Treasury as those living below 185 of the federal poverty guideline. Once again, I request that you follow the spirit of in the rule and the designated ARPA funds directly for those who benefit, for the benefit of those who have been impacted and disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is your name and city of residence? Item number?
Good evening, everybody. Parley Jones, Worcester resident. I'm also speaking on 8K. Community concern regarding the ARPA funding, September 8th, 2024. On August 20th, 2024, the City of Worcester announced the grantees for the ARPA Cultural Grants. The city allocated $2.95 million to alleviate the negative impact of COVID-19 experienced by organizations whose work is rooted in elevating arts and culture for the community. While the organizations that are led by and serve Black, Indigenous, people of color, and low-income community members in the city appreciate receiving the funding, we are also additionally disappointed to see blatant racial equity issues in the disbursement of the awards. Despite attempts by some city staff to do targeted outreach and extend deadlines to try and have more BIPOC organizations apply, the spread of the list is disturbingly business as usual for the City of Worcester. The large organizations that do not employ or primarily serve BIPOC or low-income residents of our community are at the top, and the organizations that do are on the bottom.
Jack, if you don't know that,
It's
frankly,
intended for those hit hardest by the pandemic,
step back, dude.
especially
Read some more.
low-income families and
Watch
communities
the movie
of
Get
color.
Out.
With the exception of a few, the majority of the top 20 organizations that receive the largest grants do not primarily serve or employ those who ARPA funding is meant for. The issue of equity
But watch that movie either
funding
way.
is a
It's pretty
local,
fucking great.
national,
Yeah.
and worldwide issue, and Worcester is no different. The ARPA funding is an incredibly unique opportunity to boost organizations that serve those who are most vulnerable in our community and are not yet regularly receiving large donations, are not connected to donors, and do not primarily fund their work through ticket sales. While all money is deeply appreciated, the impact of this funding for the organizations towards the bottom half of the list would have been immeasurable. We do not expect the city to, and know the city will not, revoke funding from any top awardees to balance this clear issue of equity and funding. However, it must be acknowledged that this is not the
These
first time smaller
ARPA
BIPOC-led organizations have experienced major challenges
It's
in
pretty interesting.
accessing funding through the city. The frustration with the barriers,
There's some pretty bullshit things they put it towards.
the
Public
frustration with the
asset
barriers
infrastructure improvement, that category.
regarding the ARPA application process, policies, and reporting have been brought to the city's attention from the start. And we are deeply disappointed to see that those concerns,
$2 million to the DCU Center.
that
Oh,
those
good.
concerns have not been addressed. We are additionally aware of numerous
Or
organizations
the
that have
electrical
experienced
vault.
challenges accessing funding that they have been awarding due
Very
to
nice.
excessive, rigid city policies that do not lead towards equity. We ultimately write this letter for two reasons: to ensure that the perspective of marginalized community members is documented. The tone of most articles and reports regarding the ARPA cultural grants has been mainly celebratory, which only captures the persistence of those stories that are usually prioritized over others, and not the instant shock and frustration from those who hold marginalized identities, who are no strangers to this trend from the city. Also, to urge folks to keep an eye on and demand that the city use the remaining ARPA funds for communities that it was originally intended for: BIPOC, low income, and folks in neighborhoods that unequivocally experienced harm as a result of the pandemic.
Can you wrap up?
Almost done.
Okay.
Something interesting that we have come across since leaning deeper into this funding and process is that while much of the ARPA distribution process is left to local governments, the U.S. Department of Treasury explicitly said it does not have a preference for the way grantees are paid. David Thompson, acting CEO and the vice president of the National Council of Nonprofits, said Worcester seems to be committing the same mistake as other communities across the country. They're making the distribution process and subsequent requirements a lot more strict than the federal government requires. The city has opted for safety instead of impact, Thompson said. It's easy to put money into established entities that have public support, and it takes more time and perhaps more risk to invest funds in smaller organizations that are innovating, and it's disappointing. As of today at 3:30, we've had 107 community members and 19 organizations sign on to this statement of solidarity. And for the record, no one is mad at any particular people or organizations that
Not all
receive funding.
men.
However,
Right,
if we
Jack?
cannot be honest about the clear issues of equity in the ARPA cultural grant funding,
No, he's
then
special.
we are doing a
Gio.
disservice to those who
He
this
gets to
funding is
say it.
intended for. Thank you.
Thank you.
My favorite city ARPA expenditure
Names
is
to your
16 million
residents, item number.
for revenue recovery.
David Webb, City of Worcester. I am here
What does that
primarily in
mean?
support
It's not
of item 8K. As you've heard, and as you will continue to hear tonight, the city did not act equitably.
No,
when
but
it
we do
distributed
comment
those
on
funds.
Joe's
I'm going to
inability
read
to
from
articulate.
worcestermass.gov/ARPA.
Brendan, your mic wasn't very loud. What did you say?
Overall goals
No,
and
but we do
priorities set by the
comment on
city and
Joe's
federal
inability to
government,
articulate.
including but not limited to those most
Yeah.
disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, especially low-income communities and communities of color. We may not be upset with any of the organizations that received money, but once again, the city has demonstrated that it does not uphold to its stated values. It does not demonstrate the values it claims to have. When it says we are Worcester with lots of good Worcester faces, it doesn't actually mean that all of them are Worcester. It simply means it's going to continue prioritizing white homeowners. And as a further demonstration of that, I'd like to draw your attention to tabled items, another place that the Worcester City Administration demonstrates its priorities. We have rent control tabled in 2019. We have COVID-19 vaccination bill tabled 2021. We have a different ARPA thing from 2021 when you guys didn't do what you should have then. We have stuff on the school. We have prioritizing the WRTA, the ecotarium. There's a lot of things that would be good. I'm sorry. Request city manager work with appropriate departments and stakeholders to establish an office of housing stability in an effort to prevent the involuntary displacement of city residents who are in the process of being evicted or at the risk of losing their housing, as well as to enact policies to combat displacement, homelessness, and enhance tenants' rights. You know, this is just another one of those, like, if you look at all of the problems we've got in Worcester today and you think, well, what could we have done differently? Look through the tabled items. Worcester demonstrates its priorities and it's ugly.
Idella has it, City of Worcester. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't even come to the meeting here tonight. This should have been resolved right from the beginning. When COVID first hit Worcester, it took weeks before anybody said, what about the minority community? How is it hitting? How is it affecting the minority community?
I don't think I can personally handle it if he runs.
And suddenly we realized
Just
it
gonna
was
not have.
knocking
gonna make-
the minority
gonna make work
community
suck for me.
down. The numbers were outrageous, and the way it was affecting them was much harder. They were getting hit harder. More people were dying. More people were hospitalized for longer periods of time, which means their families were hit harder. People were out of work longer. They were without paychecks longer.
I know we've discussed this. in
And some
previous shows,
people were
but
not
I also
able
know
to
that,
return
not
to
everybody
work.
is always in. Idella identifies as Black.
So the
Yes,
hardship
We talked about that before. Yep.
was
Yeah.
there.
I just saw someone make a comment. I wasn't sure.
And
if it
when
was
you're
Joe or
already
right now.
indigent and those things occur, how do you catch up? You don't. So this money needs to go where the need is. And obviously, that is where the need is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? What's your name, city of residence?
Charles Luster, City of Worcester resident. Last time I was here, I talked about $500,000 that I'm talking about 8K as also. Talked about the $500,000. I left here like, wow, just let the Black community and the entire community know about $500,000. And I leave here like, wow, city councilor want to accuse you of doing unlawful things, but it's all good because what we want you guys to see that this money here,
this ought to be fun.
Yeah.
45 million. What's the interest on it? Does anybody know the interest on it?
I don't think there's interest on it.
And that's the problem with Worcester. Nobody has any answers about any questions that we ask. Being left out, my nonprofit, I came before City Council 2021, talked about Together We Eat. It was a unanimous vote. Oh, we're gonna help Together We Eat financially, block grants. Here's a chance for you to do what we call 100 in the community, where nonprofit farming program, Black farming program gets, so far got $80,000. White farming program gets $1 million right off the top. So you can tell me it's about different infrastructures and operational costs, but at the end of the day, it says BIPOC. I think I'm a part of the BIPOC community. Black, I think I'm Black. Last time I checked, I was Black. But here I am, a Black nonprofit leader in my community giving away free food. And I can't get funds to operate in a city that we call ourselves an all-American city. It's a shame. This is the same thing that they did in the 1800s, not giving Black people 40 acres and a mule, but we don't want to talk about that. So when we talk about history, this is history again repeating itself, leaving Black people out of funding that's truly was built for their community. And I understand sometimes we say, well, we gave the money to organizations that serve the BIPOC community. Look, I'm a BIPOC person with a BIPOC company doing BIPOC things for BIPOC people. I can't get any BIPOC than that. So what I'm asking the council is, please, let's look at a different way of doing business. Because the way we're doing business, it shows America right now, we're one of the racist cities in the country.
Good evening. I'm Linford Cunningham, City of Worcester. I came here tonight not to speak, but I think I want
I just
to
did the
talk.
math, and with the rest of the COVID money,
So
you could just give
we at AIDS Project Worcester, we
$1,600 check
did
to free
receive some
Black
ARPA
residents.
funding, but sometimes I feel like
Spend it
tell
all.
my boss to tell the
Down
city
for that.
back. Part of the reason why I came across an email, so when we did one of our billings
probably
one
do a lot
time, we
better
served
than
food,
many
hot
used to.
meals,
Right.
and we're required to serve
I don't know.
one person
DCU could
10
really
meals. But the population we serve are
2 mil.
nomadics. They come and they go. I recall we submitted billing and we were asked, why are you giving one person 5 or 3 meals during one session? And I'm like, are they crazy? We gave one person 10 meals and they told us, we're not paying for that. We're not reimbursing you for that. Give the person 1 extra meal and then we'll pay. Now, we all know that the population that my agency serves, and I don't even think we should be here again, because I remember some months back, a group of us met with city officials, and we left feeling that, you know, we would not have been back at this place. And here we are again tonight talking about the very same restrictive high barrier issues that are being placed on agencies such as myself. So to be honest, some days I feel like saying to my boss, let's cut our losses, tell them we don't want their monies because it's very difficult. We provide meals on Fridays especially. We prepare meals. We serve about 25 meals on a Friday. I get up very early in the morning to get to the office so that the preparation can occur. to ensure that the staff. Tariq does the same thing too. But it has become so unbearable and disheartening knowing that we can't, right now we are saying to individuals, you can only get one meal. Because my fear in doing the reporting is that if we give someone more than 2 or 3 meals, it's questioned when we submit our billing. It's unreasonable, unrealistic expectations. And if the funds, as I know it to be, were meant to serve
Discover Central
individuals who
MA
are
is
low
how the
income
Chamber of
earners,
Commerce
who are
gets
struggling, and
funding
granted,
from
even those folks with
operating.
money are struggling too.
Basically.
Imagine those without enough money.
So
And
they
if we
got
put in
1.5 million
restriction,
from
I had a gentleman came in one morning and I said to him, I need all of this
The
information
same
from you.
tourism
And he said, just for food? And he got very hungry.
WPI.
And I said, you know what? It's food. I won't bombard you with getting the information. I'll give you the food because the person came in early and they were hungry. So as I support the item that my day has put forward,
Can you wrap up the comments?
as I support the item that my day has so put forward, I ask the city to really reconsider how the funds are dispersed, and not only dispersed, but the restrictions that are placed on these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Your name, city residence.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey Killebrew. Worcester, Massachusetts is where I reside. And I wanted to speak on behalf of item 8K. I want to give a quick shout out to all the organizations who are represented tonight and those across the city who are doing amazing work. But it's not just about the work that they're doing or them being deserving of support. Okay, it's about the people that they're serving in ways that sometimes the city isn't able to. It's a support. So, and it would only make sense that we have 45 million left for this year for it to be dispersed amongst those who are doing this work. And as they said, that the city is going through a renaissance. You know, again, here's a perfect opportunity to support the organizations that need it most. And so as it will trickle down. Otherwise, it would appear up until this moment that the city would be more willing to send the money back than to give it to, reduce the red tape. So that's what we're looking for. And I have full confidence that the city will work towards resolving this before the end of the year is out. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Hey, we'll go to the people who called it. I'm sorry.
3.6 million for administrative overhead.
Did your name see your residence?
No
My name is Margot Barnett. I am a
explanation of that.
resident of Worcester. I'm speaking on 8K. I've been on boards of some nonprofits here in the city. And what I've observed over the years is that if organizations that are small, that are trying to serve people who are underserved, are given restrictions, that they can't do the work that they want to do. And more nonprofits become kind of corporate dominated and disconnected from doing the work that serves people who are the most in need of it. So
That's a great question, Gamer.
It's really important that you don't impose any barriers that are not absolutely required by the federal government, that you recognize the kinds of
That's a lot of forms.
work that groups are doing,
You have
that
to
you
make a
recognize
SAM,
that a group
government, federal
having
government ID,
to front
which you have to
money
update once
to
every 12 months.
pay for whatever it is that they want to do and get reimbursed is a huge barrier, and that can absolutely sink a small nonprofit and small organization. I've been in and connected to groups where that happened. And so to have a spirit of really wanting this to be a city that's inclusive, it's really, really important to recognize what some people are doing that the city is not doing, who are providing services that you should be very happy that people are providing, and remove any barriers to them being able to provide the service. And a key one is having to front money and then have it reimbursed. That is just makes it almost impossible. And the other thing is that if you increase a group's capacity, then the next time around they might be able to fund the money. It's the groups that are working on a shoestring trying to serve people that don't have that kind of capacity. And if if you provide them with funds to build their capacity, then they really might be able to front money the next time around. But we have to decide as a community that we're going to support organizations that are doing this work and build their capacity and give them the resources they need to do the work.
Thank you.
Oh, Brendan's rocking a fit.
What's that? Oh, yeah. That's what I do all, like, once fall comes around. I've got very delicate fingers.
Worcester, Massachusetts.
Once we hit
I'm also
October,
here
it's
in
fingerless
support
gloves straight through March.
8. I just had it.
Okay.
Kate, just want to be concise there. I have had conversations with a few of you in this room. And so according to the city's municipal strategic plan, the goal, economic growth, the objective 3 and 6 states enable and support diverse neighborhood skill, commerce, small businesses and entrepreneurship. Objective 6 states promotes arts and culture to drive economic development by drawing talent and tourism. However, how can we start all of, doing our 5-year plan? How can we meet all of those if we are here fighting for basic funding from the city of Worcester? The Massachusetts Organization of African Descendants that I'm representing here today, we are a coalition of over 200 African ethnic organizations, associations, immigrant, refugee, nonprofits, churches, you name it. And during the pandemic, a lot of us did a lot of work, and led by me, working with the city, working with UMass to not only build awareness in our communities, but also do COVID clinics, and then also to go further to do research with UMass to understand more why, African and BIPOC people were not, getting vaccinated and all of that. To this day, like everyone has said, our organization has not gotten a penny besides the $12,500 we got, I think, in 2023 for our festival, when our budget was $30K. We have not gotten a penny, even though, I've done the application, and I'm always pushing back to, the folks that the application go to in terms of, advocating for our community, because the funds that we would go back into our communities, into the different organizations that we support, such and such and such. I do want to state, as everyone have stated here, there is no, based on the U.S. Department of Treasury, there is no preference. So why are we, having to knock doors and go above and beyond just to get basic things that for our communities? That is unacceptable. I've had several meetings with the mayor, Congressman McGovern, state rep senators, Keith, Mike Moore, just sharing all of these things about what is the city doing in terms of really supporting communities of color. And we need that, because when it comes next year, when it comes to voting, folks in this room will be in our communities, but then we will catch you guys in those spaces as well.
Can you wrap?
And I do want to say, as I close here, I am asking on behalf of everybody that this committee and the city goes above and beyond to allocate $44.3 million and not give pocket change $20K to organizations. We're looking with the balance that is here. I am urging and advocating for the city to consider more dollars to organizations that have not received, so that we can go on and do our business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That look at the end was very good.
Okay, we'll go online. Nico.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first speaker can identify as Casey Burns. I'm going to mute the resident now.
No, we'll come back. Ruth, you want to speak? Okay, come on up. Use your name, see your residence, and item number.
Good evening, Ruth Rodriguez Bay, retired teacher from Worcester Public School. I have come to you before, and all I'm asking is, I'm pleading, let's make the city an example of a true humanity. Treat your neighbor as you want it to be treated. I have shared this with you. The U.S. Census Bureau report that found that Massachusetts is the worst state for Latino and Black to live. And we saw that during the pandemic, where Black and Latino had the worst pandemic outcome. I just want us, and I'm pleading with you, do a committee and let's get together and find a way to treat each other with kindness. Let me just one example, personal example, as to the racism in this state. While I was doing my master at BU, part of the program, we had to work with the community. It was during the time there was all that racial families were taking the children away from public school because they didn't want them with those Haitian and Latin American kids. One of the duty of the program that I was in, we had to work with the community on Friday. That year, the Boston Public School passed a law which was illegal, that families enrolling their children in the public school had to show proof of citizenship. I took a family that had just come from Puerto Rico to enroll them. And we worked even with the white families. And let me tell you, back in the 70s and 80s, the majority of undocumented came from Canada and Europe, not from below a southern border. And former president, he never talked about building a wall between
Can you
Canada.
wrap,
No,
you wrap
he
up?
wants a wall between Black and Latino people.
Thank you.
Because he doesn't want any more
Thank you.
Black.
Appreciate it.
But let me just say, while we're waiting for our turn to enroll this family, I began to know none of the white family were asked.
Thank you.
But when came my turn, she was very adamant. I said, oh, so you didn't ask the white family, but you asked this family that came from Puerto Rico, who are U.S. citizens even before the.
Thank you, Ruth. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
This is what
Thank you.
we need to work on,
Ruth, thank you.
the injustice. And let me say, I don't want to see any white child go through
Thank you,
what
Ruth.
our children go through.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, we're going to go back to Casey Burns. I'm going to try to unmute the resident now. Please state your name, city of residence, and the item you're calling on.
Hi, my name's Casey Burns. I am a resident of Worcester, and I'm speaking on 8K. I'm the executive director of the Coalition for Healthy Greater Worcester, and I wanted to speak on this because we have clear data, clear evidence, the community health assessment, many assessments that disparities in our city are still getting worse, that Black and Brown populations are carrying the burden of inequitable health outcomes. And we have known this for the time, and the trend is not getting better. This funding from ARPA has a clear and specific charge to address the disparities, to repair harm that has been done, and to specifically go to communities who are disproportionately impacted. That is the part of the charge that we need to be accountable to. I had the opportunity to work with the city of Worcester a couple of years ago when the ARPA funds were first being distributed and the process was being developed. And we had some amazing support from statewide organizations like Health Resources in Action, who were looking at communities across the state and supporting them with equitable funding distribution practices. That support and those best practices are still available. We took advantage of some of them, but not many of them. And so I think that we have an opportunity to tap back into that to see how can this be done differently so that we can look at communities like Chelsea and Lynn and Cambridge who did some really innovative work in order to make sure that that funding got to the populations that it was meant to impact. One of the things that I think we specifically missed in our application process was asking specific questions, not just about how can you, how are you impacting BIPOC communities? Where is your office located? But we missed asking, what is the leadership of your board and staff look like? Because that makes a difference in the kinds of investments that this makes and the kind of work that is done. And I think that is something we specifically need to be upfront and to be able to address, like many of the of the speakers have said earlier. I would call on white-led organizations, good organizations doing powerful work in the community, but are led by white people, either in staff roles or in boards or both, to find points of solidarity, to think what it means to radically power share and distribute resources differently. We need to stop thinking about the bottom lines of our own organizations and this like survival tactic of our organizations and what that means for the next year.
Casey, you can wrap up your comments, please.
Yes, and what that means.
Jack, would you say Casey's articulate
The bottom line
or?
Community to actually be addressing and moving the dial on health in our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the next speaker is Emmy Ebbetson. I'm trying to mute the resident now.
Interesting that you didn't feel the need to bring that up initially.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name, city of residence, and the item.
My name is Amy Ebbison. I live in Rutland and I work at Worcester Person's Childhood Trauma. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today.
Yeah.
I'm on 8K. Many of you know that my work at Worcester
Amy, you have a lot of background noise.
Sorry about my dog. Many of you know that my work at Worcester Addresses Childhood Trauma is centered around mental health and preventing and mitigating the impact of trauma. I believe racism is trauma. I'm very involved in Worcester Together and have been since it started. When the ARPA money came out and the RFPs were made public, I took this as a call to action. It was deeply important to me to address the harm done by the pandemic and to mitigate the disproportionate harm done to the BIPOC community. In service of this call to action, my colleagues and I worked countless hours to really try to understand what would be the most helpful to people in crisis. I interviewed over 75 people, primarily Black and Brown leaders, about what they wanted and needed. We put together what I thought was a really solid proposal. This proposal was a capacity building proposal. It was designed to give trauma and mental health education to interested individuals. Those individuals could then go on to get a credential in trauma recovery coaching. This would allow natural community leaders to meet their own mental health needs and give support to their peer group in a structured, evidence-based, and formalized way. It offered direct, tangible, and usable skills and information. I thought I did everything right. I went to every info session and I followed all the directions. Worcester Acts was not awarded any funds. I was told where I fell short was sustainability. My project was not granted funding because it wasn't sustainable. Well, this wasn't surprising to me. It was never my intention to make it sustainable. I saw these funds as a one-time infusion of cash that could build individual and organizational capacity. It was never my intention to start a program that would go in perpetuity. I have no interest in creating dependence on a specific program. Never was it stressed, and I look back and check, that sustainability would be a key element in weighing the merits of our proposals. I feel like this is exactly why we got lots of the same old in Worcester. This evaluation favored what already exists. If you have a big organization like Open Sky, you're sustainable. That to me was not what this money was designed to do. This money was intended to be a one-time boost for this community. To me, this is a dramatic design flaw. If you say you want new innovative programs, I'm wrapping it up. If you say you want new innovative programs, but you're going to consider sustainability as a primary factor in whether somebody gets funded or not, then you're never going to get new and innovative programs. You're going to get exactly what you got, more of the same old suspects. On a side note.
Okay.
All right.
I want to know what
Mayor,
that
the
side
next
note was.
identifier is Karen Valentine.
I would call in on two different
Can you hear me?
lines.
We can. Please
and then just continue my comments.
Karen Valentine Goins, Worcester
And,
resident.
and just pretend I'm a
here
different
chiefly to
person.
speak in support of item K, but I also support.
I like the
items
idea of
C,
people
C,
calling in
D,
and
G.
yielding their time to people who
I will
feel
leave
more
it to
than
the
they do.
petitioners and the other speakers to best express the underlying rationale for this request. It's no secret to any of us that BIPOC communities were disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. I strongly support the request to allocate the remaining ARPA funds to organizations led by members of BIPOC communities and serving those populations. I especially urge the city to focus on creating easily accessible routes to assist the people this funding was designed for to apply for the remaining funds, as described very powerfully earlier by Ms. Morales, Ms. Jones, Ms. Burns, and others. That is low-income community members, communities of color, and people living and working in neighborhoods most impacted by the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Jennifer Gaskin. I'm trying to meet the resident now.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jennifer Gaskin. I am a resident of Worcester, Massachusetts. As the founder of the WCACA, I have poured my heart and soul and finances into this organization, striving to make a meaningful impact on the BIPOC community in our city. Our annual event requires a budget that takes up most of our annual budget, operating budget, with the majority allocated to city permitting and police details. The pandemic dealt a severe blow to our operations. We lost our studio location and we were unable to host an event, which consequently impacted our primary sources of income. The mass camps that we rely on dwindled from 6 to 7 to 2 to 3 following the pandemic, as financial strains and the loss of key elders took the toll, erasing both tangible and intangible cultural heritage. We have had to give stipends to fund the mass bands in order for them to be able to participate following the pandemic. Despite these challenges, our struggles have been overlooked by this city. We weren't worth as much as the others because our budget did not match theirs. As if the city has no idea about the history or the constraints on my organization and others like it. The WCACA is 12 years old and a BIPOC-led and focused organization. It is not the Hanover Theater or the Ecotarium, with both charge and have the privilege of being white-led organizations. So it would stand to reason that their budgets would be bigger. I do not understand how that equates to a greater need, but that is the answer from the city. The ARPA funds represented a beacon of hope, a chance to not only revive our traditions and operations, but to also build a resilient, sustainable organization capable of weathering future crises. These funds could have empowered us to educate future generations, secure our financial stability, and truly fulfill our mission. Instead, we receive more of the same, missing a transformative opportunity to ensure the longevity and vitality of our community's cultural legacy. We implore the city to do better with the remaining funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Natalie. I'm trying to meet the resident now.
Hi, good evening. This is Natalie Gibson from Worcester, Mass. I am in favor of 8C through 8G. I know it's hard for people to understand this, but school districts, even if they are preschool, Head Starts, they are still a school district. They have children going to them, children that can run out into the street because that's sometimes what children do. And yes, some parents do mind their children, but accidents do happen. So I do believe in having that safe 20-mile-an-hour zone. And if it encompasses the whole street, oh well. As to 8K, I am in favor of that because I listened to the previous speakers talk about this. And what I have to say is, for those people who keep thinking or saying, why is race always brought up? Why do they just look for handouts and not get a job? That would be people of color. Let me remind you that it was in the late 1400s, early 1500s, that Europeans brought slaves who happened to have been African Americans to this continent. Okay, we didn't just get on the boat ourselves and come here. So therefore, this has started since that time. The United States continues to put up roadblocks and barriers for us. And then for people to look at us and say, why can't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps? The money was given for this reason or part of this reason. Why is it okay to use those funds to continue to gentrify the areas that you have now pushed these people out of? If you want them to do better, give them what was meant for them, and they wouldn't have to ask for a handout. I don't understand this thinking that all of us, there's enough work in this world for everybody. There's enough money in this world for everyone. Why?
Wrap up your comments, please.
Sure. Why can't we just divide it up? Everybody gets a little piece and we're not leaving certain groups out of the pie. Thank you. Have a nice day.
So Mayor, the next speaker is Karina Herrera. Try to meet the resident now. Karina, can you hear us?
We lost her.
Okay, we lost Karina. Then the next speaker is Fred Taylor. Fred, can you hear us?
You're muted.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we have you now. Yep.
All right. All right. Good evening, City Council, Mr. Mayor. I'm calling about item 8K. It's related to ARPA. Congress passed the American Rescue Plan, also known as ARPA, to make sure that those who are disproportionately disadvantaged by the pandemic will be taken care of and helped. We were told this unprecedented tax dollars would start by recognizing issues of equity and justice. During Worcester's listening sessions here at City Hall, we were again told that Worcester leaders were committed to prioritizing these funds to the most affected communities. So far, Worcester has spent roughly $102 million. Most of those funds were dispersed to large businesses that have the infrastructure to apply for grants, and in some cases, businesses that know where to go to apply for the funds. I've heard countless stories about barriers to accessing ARPA funds, even some organizations returning the funds due to so much red tape. We have roughly $44 million in ARPA funds left. We have until December 31st of this year to allocate the remaining funds. If those funds aren't allocated, the money goes back to the federal government. Today, I'm requesting that the city manager ensures, and the city council ensures, that the remaining funds are distributed mostly to organizations that work directly with people who are most impacted by the coronavirus, particularly Black, Brown, Indigenous, people of color, small profits that were left out for one reason or another. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, that's the last speaker virtually.
No, we're
Actually,
all set. Thank you.
Karina Herrera is on. She couldn't
she on?
unmute. If you could help her unmute.
Thank you. She is, we don't see her. Is she on the other one?
Mr. Mayor, I think I do see. I'm
He was
trying
right
one more
before
time.
Fred Taylor.
Yeah. There she is. She's there. Go ahead.
That's
Sorry,
Karen. I think we.
Karina Herrera, put her on. She's right there.
Karina, can you hear us?
You're muted still.
Now,
There you go.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So my name is Karina Herrera, and I'm a resident of Worcester, and I'm here in support of AK. I'm also here today as a voice for the minority community who has been disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, especially those facing housing insecurity. As you know, federal and local funds, relief funds, were allocated to assist these communities. but many of us are still struggling to see the impact of those resources where they are needed most. Nonprofit organizations like WAFT, which is a Worcester Anti-Foreclosure Team, which is fighting tirelessly, I'm sorry about my accent, tirelessly and ferociously for justice on behalf of minorities who are losing or have already lost their homes, such as myself, have not received the adequate support needed to continue this vital work. These funds were intended to uplift vulnerable communities such as ours, yet they haven't fully reached the organizations on the front line of this battle. So we respectfully ask that the money allocated for minority communities during the pandemic be given back to us. Why is it sitting there? What are you waiting for? When are you going to allocate these funds? Particularly nonprofit organizations like WAFT, who are directly addressing the housing crisis that COVID has worsened for so many of us. With proper funding, we can continue to fight for justice, prevent further displacement, and help those who are still struggling to recover from the devastating economic impact of this pandemic. So I urge you to please, we shouldn't have to be back here asking for this money to be distributed. So just do it. And I want to, hear from you guys, from the council committee, that when are you planning to distribute this money? So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just very.
Okay, we're going to come back to this in about 2
44,000
seconds.
cash.
Pick up where you left off.
Cash in God's acre.
We're going down to 7A, 7B. Motion is open to hearing. All those in favor?
Wait, what's the deal?
so
What was the thing about God's
ordered.
Acre again?
Anybody opposed to 7A?
We just
or
buried
7B?
44 million out there.
Anybody opposed?
Oh,
Motion to
yeah.
close the hearing.
And then whoever
To
finds it
adopt.
first
All
gets
those
it.
in favor? Opposed? So ordered.
Carve a map into a big rock.
Petitions.
Yeah.
8A refer to public
Got
works.
P on it to
8B
to
to
show what
8J
the
refer
map
to
is.
traffic and parking.
Yep.
Just out of curiosity, on Councilor Haxhiaj's orders here, I thought this was automatic. Do we have to, each district council has to put these on? Just for clarification.
My understanding was that this was to be done by petition.
Okay.
So
okay.
once the ordinance is ordained,
Or Rob
then
Velasquez?
anybody can put in a petition, residents and district councilors.
Is there
Councilor
Rob in
Russell?
there? I didn't see.
Mr. Chairman,
Sounds
I had
fine,
no
Rob.
other on the agenda. I think it was the same evening we ended up doing the vote to advertise the 25-mile-an-hour zone, asking for the administration to come back for a list of these 20-mile-an-hour zones, including facilities and areas similar to what the councilors pointed out in her district. But I'm looking for the administration's traffic and mobility department to put their expertise together and put together a comprehensive list, at least all citywide. The councilors.
20 million
right
to the
put this item on,
DPW.
and I'll support it going forward, but
Or water and
that
sewer
was my item
upgrades.
back then.
Okay.
And I was
DPW
hoping that the administration was going to come back in tonight's agenda. Mr. Chairman, there is an item from traffic and mobility, but it only outlines the Worcester Public Schools. My item asked for all school facilities and also asked for places like senior homes, the senior center itself, other parks and facilities where there's a high concentration of pedestrian activity. And I'm looking for that to come back. So hopefully that'll come back soon. Citywide. So we're not doing it piecemeal.
Okay, so say 8B to 8J refer to traffic and parking. Those in favor? Opposed? So ordered. 8K is my day Morales' petition, which we discussed tonight. And let's say a few words.
Oh, Joe's going to dignify this with a response. How very surprising.
How inarticulate.
Yeah, Joe Petty's just so articulate.
Mayor Petty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I know
The water and sewer money,
thank,
Gio, was
Marty
just
Morales,
for the
coming
general
tonight,
water and sewer
Shaun,
upgrades.
people who spoke tonight. And one of the things that they asked us
They're
to
gonna add more
acknowledge that there
COVID
are
to it.
barriers, the marginalized communities here, and we'll acknowledge that. I think we all see that. But I do have some questions, but I think there's some misunderstandings that people think there's $44 million left. And I know some people here know that, but people have spoke and who thought.
We spent it on you.
$44 million. Mr. Mayor, just give us
Suckers.
a quick background on the 44 million. How much, do we have anything left for the 44 million to be allocated? If so, it has to be allocated before the end of the year.
City manager. Through the chair to the mayor, this 44 million here, 44.3 represents money that's not contracted currently. In these $44 million, there are a number of projects already identified and associated, whether it's water and sewer infrastructure, parks projects. There's money here related to Affordable Housing Trust Fund that has been awarded, but it has not been contracted due to the fact that some of the projects haven't closed yet. And so my approach over the past few months with this body has been coming forward with any opportunity that any department or any programmatic funding has not been fully spent, or they're not thinking that they can be able to spend it. I then take that back and bring it forward with allocation. I did that with youth violence, youth employment here in the city, where we identify some funding to be able to put towards that. Just about a couple of weeks ago, I reallocated over $600,000 for a rental assistance because there was some departmental money that I was able to pull away from projects that were not going to be completed.
No.
That's part of the review
It's
that
60
continues
million
to
in
happen every
spent
month,
funds,
and we trying to provide
40
those
million
updates to
in
the council.
contracted
And
funds,
so
and
any
44
opportunity that I
million in
have to be able to
unspent
move those money, I'm definitely moving it to it. So in
That
areas
totals
where we know that our
146
residents need
So
the
he-
most help, whether it's food
He's
insecurity,
characterizing
whether
what
it's
is left
whether
so
it's,
that they don't have to
related to
promise it to
rental
anybody else.
assistance, whether it's related to
yes, he's
energy
characterizing
bills,
the
et cetera.
unspent funds
Anything that I
as
can
the
move money
contracted
around,
funds,
that
conflating.
projects are not going to be completed or projects
Simply
that
not
are
the
not going to be contracted, then I have the opportunity to do that. But right now, this $44 million outside of the ones that I already in the last couple of weeks identified, which was a little over 600,000, all these monies I've actually stated to be contracted over the next few months.
But there could be additional monies coming back.
Oh, slated.
Correct. And every month I'm spending time with not only the CFO or Peter Dunn, where we're evaluating and looking at every single dollar and saying, and asking the questions.
What if
are you gonna spend
hilarious
this on- are we
response
gonna
to
get them
this?
contracted,
Oh, no,
et
no,
cetera?
no,
And
you're
if they're not,
wrong.
Then I'm going to take the
We
opportunity
already
to move
contracted
them
this
and
money
put them in the
to
areas that I think,
besides
from what I'm
yours.
hearing in the
So
community, has been
you
the
have
most
nothing to complain
impacted, whether it's food insecurity or rental assistance, et cetera. So those are the areas that we keep hearing about, and those are the areas that we've been focused on trying to provide some funding.
Okay. And if we do get additional funds, we should work with the community, no question about that, especially the community members who are in the neighborhoods that have been impacted by COVID-19, and which has been identified probably in most every district in the city of Worcester, some of the inner cities, obviously being impacted greater. And UMass did a whole map on that. I think everybody's seen the map and how the impact.
The
of
Burnside fountain
and
just comes COVID right in your face now when you walk by.
So something we should work on. You know, I thought when we did this, and maybe it was our responsibility too, but when we brought the community, we brought community members together.
$100,000 spent
Met,
on first-time
allocated the
homeownership.
funds, and we
So
probably should have thought of
they
at
bought
that time is how to be more equitable in the distribution.
1/4 of the mortgage
and not
for
leave it
one
up to
house in Worcester.
you know, maybe the committees by themselves.
Both.
We could have been a little stronger on that in the future. We should work. This is always an issue.
It depends on how tall you
especially
are.
When someone you have a small organization who's
pretty incredible
has
that they
great
finished
impact
at
on
the
the
same
community,
time.
their neighborhood, but don't have the back office support, we should say, or the staff, because
That's why they're
small.
deserving of a
And
fountain.
How do you get to the next level? And somehow we have to figure that out. Maybe working with the community on how when we get funds like this again, whether it be through the block grant money or other avenues.
Did Joe just threaten us with another pandemic?
Next year.
when we get funds like this again?
Into the city. And how do you
100
work
years
with
from
the
now.
community who don't have back office.
If we're
support,
lucky.
but have a good program. And can't meet these rules, which we know.
Well, we got through the China virus, but there's still the Russia virus and the Iran virus.
Some of the rules that the city was applying, Mr. Manager, and I know we had this discussion, and I thought, I'm pretty sure you went back and tried to work better with the community. And do we today still impose harder rules on what the federal government is
Joe
requiring?
and Eric didn't really choreograph this one too well.
No, they did not.
I think we should start a rumor that the DCU
to the mayor.
funding, went to pay for Sebastian
We've tried
Maniscalco
to
come last
adhere
week.
to some to the rules that had been set before us. There's been a lot of conversation.
Did that already happen?
Our
I think
staff
so.
has gone through
I
seminars,
think I saw
conferences,
news after
workshops, etc., with the federal.
I wonder how it's
government,
sold.
U.S. Department of Treasury and others to understand the implications of the.
He seems
of
pretty
the
far
rules.
off his peak for a
We've
arena
met,
show.
Yes, with the
Even if
community.
it's a
in
small
terms of the
arena.
concerns
Is
in
he
terms of
still the
reporting
top
and
grossing annual?
respective of, request of reporting. I
question.
think some of the challenges is we want to
I
get as
could
much
type that
information
into the
that we
computer,
can.
Mr.
So
Arnett,
when
right now, but
eventually
I'll leave
this
it to you.
money is spent and the money is allocated, et cetera, we can then come back to the council and to the public
Yeah,
of
we'll,
how these monies were impacted, right? Who they served, what census tract did we serve? What
Yeah, we're gonna have
neighborhoods,
we're
what
gonna have to clip
individuals
that
were they?
afterwards.
Women,
Petty's
men,
whole
people of color, et cetera, et cetera.
What did he
So we
say?
want to be able to
Holding
have
out
that
for the
data and
next
information.
pandemic.
There's
Well,
been
that
some
and then
areas
also
where we've
this
had
one
some
that Yenny
compromise in conversation. Hearing tonight, it seems as though there's some areas that we could still be able to improve.
like the
In conversation with our chief
yeah,
development
let me make a
officer,
note of that.
we're going to continue
That
to
would've been
have those
around
conversations with our current in-house
nice
auditors.
catch,
See if
Jess
there's
and
any other
Jenny. I mean Yenny.
wiggle room there or any other areas that we can be able to be more amenable. But we feel we've been committed to the rules that have been set before us and the conversations that all of our staff, including from CFO to budget office, budget analyst, economic development, has had in terms of workshops and seminars with the federal government related to the expenditures of these dollars.
I think that's the point. When you're ready, you just mentioned about getting a report back to council, how this money has been allocated and the impact it has, 150 million, that we get a detailed report and the time is right. After the allocation is done, probably it's gonna be done by the end of the year.
Got a
And
detailed
then we'll have
report.
2 more years to spend on the
don't-
organizations. Let's make sure that we work with all the
Don't try too hard to get it
organizations
to
that need
us
support.
too soon.
You were saying. We always can do better.
We want to
and I
kind of
think
wait
as
till it's too
we're
late
asked to acknowledge we can do
talk about
better.
this.
We can do better. And so there's no question about that. We have to get it right for the next time. And because it's probably gonna be a next time, if federal money comes in. I'm not saying that we got it completely wrong. We let the community decide this at one time, but we probably should, council maybe should have had greater say in the matter and the allocation, probably had a good debates here on that. But something we can work on together as a community and to make sure the allocations are put in the
Why
right
is he
place.
going so hard
where people
for
who are in the streets, in the
for
neighborhoods, the
charter
city where they're doing
change
this
when
work
he's just
related to
going to be
COVID-19.
handing
There's a
Maureen
lot
Menendez a
of
strong
issues that
mayor
relate to
position?
COVID-19
Yeah.
We discussed how to make it better. So, and whatever the next issue comes in front of us.
You're just going to turn South
We
High
gotta figure
into
out
a
the fiscal
internment
agent,
camp.
you know, as a community and how to, there's a lot of small organizations.
With
out
unspent
there
ARPA dollars.
who do
Yeah.
good work. Some of them are here tonight. who do
Yeah, you
good
can buy a
work,
lot of barbed wire
but
with
actually
44
can't meet the
million.
requirements. And
In
how
your
can we make
second
that
5
better?
minutes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are good. Thanks. I think you get a more formal motion, get a report back on the allocations once they're all complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It'll be, I'll speak next, followed by Councilor Nguyen.
Yeah. He was let's just put it this way, he's really Jack Murraying it while he spoke, the mayor.
Call it a classic Jack. That's what I like to say.
Yeah. He was jacking off.
Council King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did jot a
That's all I have
couple
to
of
say to
notes
Jack
down
now,
here.
whenever he's
And I just wanted to begin by
Quit
saying,
jacking off.
Quit
or
jacking
asking,
off.
just for reiteration, what I heard from our mayor, and I want to confirm what I heard from Manager Batista is that we can do better. Is that right, through the chair?
Through the chair,
Manager.
to the chair, to the council. I think, you know, as a good leader and someone that understands business and operations, nothing is ever perfect, and we could always do better.
Thank you. Just wanted to start with some of the notes that I jotted down, and I wanted to say that, you know, many months ago, myself, Sarai Rivera, city manager, a number of folks in this group sat down, and we talked about ironing out some of the concerns relative to reimbursements, small organizations having to pay the money up front. And I was under the understanding that that had been remedied, and it seems as though that apparently had not been remedied. And before we get to that explanation, I'd like a clarification on what happened there. I wanted to just say that, you know, understanding economic disparity and meeting the needs of underserved groups is absolutely a necessity, Mr. Chairman. We must do this. We must reimburse in concert with the intended spirit and regulations that have been established, but nothing beyond that. And of course, with an equity lens. I've spoke to Mr. Dunn, when I was chair of municipal operations, we had a number of meetings requiring oversight for this stuff. I would like this particular item also to go to municipal operations for them to have further discussion on this as we move forward, Mr. Chairman, by way of a motion. But I have to tell you, I'm really incredulous that we're sitting here once again having this discussion. On the face of it, it's not acceptable. I can't tell you how many times, Mr. Chairman, that groups have come to me in the community indicating their intention to potentially return monies to the city due to barriers related to demographics, having to report some of the things you heard today. And I just want to understand, and my question to the chair is, why are we or have we been imposing barriers with regards to our BIPOC-led groups and access to funding that go beyond the federal requirements, as was referenced by multiple parties today? Through the chair to the manager.
Mr. Manager?
Through the chair to the council, I want to clarify, we're not imposing specifically only to the BIPOC. We are following within the guidelines that we think were set forward to us, to everybody that receives funding from ARPA dollars. I do understand and recognize the conversation that you're alluding to with some of the members in the BIPOC community, and some of them have expressed those sentiments to me as well. But I would like Peter Dunn, he's online, he can explain a little bit further some of the guidelines in terms of
Throw him under the bus, why don't you?
what we require as part of the reporting.
Bringing in the closer, the guy who actually knows what's going on.
He's calling in from band practice.
Yeah.
You see him?
Yeah, this question is getting a little bit too. You need to know what's happening. So
that's not
we're gonna
really
bring on
my.
one nerd in City Hall that knows what's happening.
My thing is kind of like I go on the internet and I don't drink the coffee.
Referencing, we have made accommodations for what the federal government calls advanced payments. I would say that it's not a one size fits all approach. It has to do with some of the criteria and parameters that are set out in the Code of Federal Regulations. So specifically, while there is a final rule that Treasury set forward with the American Rescue Plan Act, it also says that these disbursements of funds must comply with 2 CFR Part 200, which is the General Code of Federal Regulations, the uniform administrative requirements that apply to all federal funds. And so what we were able to do with eligible purposes or eligible contracts is provide advance funding of up to $50,000. That metric is determined because that is the threshold by which the federal government tells us if you have an ARPA expenditure of $50,000 or more, you have to be able to demonstrate how those funds were spent and what was accomplished for it. So that's how we established that dollar figure, and we have used it, as I mentioned, on eligible contract bases. And furthermore, where that comes from is that in this uniform administrative requirements, it specifically says that if the reimbursement is not feasible because the non-federal entity or the grantee lacks sufficient working capital, then the federal awarding agency or pass-through entity may provide cash on a working capital advance basis. Under this procedure, the federal awarding agency or pass-through entity must advance cash payments to the grantee to cover its estimated disbursement needs for an initial period generally geared to the non-federal entity's dispersing cycle. So there's a lot of legalese that's built into all of these federal regulations. Quite frankly, I think myself and all of our staff agree with the perspective of many speakers tonight and our grantees that it is frustrating. We are equally frustrating with some of the federal regulations that create barriers, create challenges in doing the work without having to navigate the complexities of it. But what we are obligated to do as the pass-through entity, as the manager of these federal funds, is make sure that we're doing it in accordance with what those regulations say. So we've tried to be accommodating. We've tried to look at the interpretation of these regulations and make sure that we're trying to provide the maximum flexibility to organizations to do the good work, but also knowing that in the event of an audit, we have to present sufficient documentation to the Office of the Inspector General or whatever agency, whether it's the Treasury that comes in to audit the city of Worcester, so that we don't expose our taxpayers into a situation where we have to now repay the federal government because we don't have sufficient documentation in accordance with the regulations that are applying to these funds. If that's a helpful explanation.
Through the chair.
Thank you.
Lump sum and upfront payment. Those are some of the things that we met on some months ago. And
I
my
love
understanding is that concern was rectified. If someone could speak to whether or not
We
that was
we were told
the
we could
upfront
apply
payments,
for this
et cetera, were
$50,000
completely eliminated.
grant
Going back a few
through the ARPA
months.
program, and
chair.
all this explanation makes me not want to even bother.
Through the chair to the
This sounds
counselor, I'm
too
not sure I
confusing.
understand the question fully. We haven't totally eliminated the concept of a reimbursement basis. It is what's preferred, because when you have a reimbursement basis, if the agency has sufficient working capital for that, then it creates a very clear line of documentation that this is what was expended. This is the accomplishment or the outcome data that's supporting, the disbursement of those federal funds. But we have provided advanced funding opportunities in these situations, again, that's outlined under the federal criteria of when there is insufficient working capital for an organization to do that. But it's not something that is just offered kind of carte blanche to anybody that would like to avail themselves of that. There has to be some dialogue with the grant management staff to say, this is what we're facing, this is why this advanced funding is necessary, this is what we think we need over the course of the next cycle of basically expenses. So the federal government expects us to look at what's a reasonable time frame. If you have a program that has a contract duration of 12 months, and that's a total of 100 grand, it's not reasonable to say you need all the 100 grand today, because you have to anticipate, well, what's the cash flow needs over the next 30 or 60 days and come up with what a reasonable advance payment is based on the imminent cash needs of that organization. So it's not a one size fits all situation for each and every one of our grants.
All I'm saying is, if somebody handed me $1 million,
Thank you.
I could become a
Mr. Chair, I would
billionaire
like
within
to have a motion here.
35 days.
That we get a report back on how and in what instances that lump sum and upfront lump sum payment.
If someone gave me $1 million, I'd put it all into Raytheon.
I'm particularly interested as relates to some of the
safest bet on the planet
groupings of funding
Right now, yeah.
and the mental health folks.
And
I know that
my
those are some of the
morals.
folks that had the concerns.
Morals got nothing to do with
And,
cash.
you talk about concepts and preferences. I need numbers and data. In addition to that, Mr. Chairman, I know that some of the best practices were recommended. I worked with a number of community folks going back, and I know that some of the best practices that should have been entertained and should have been employed were things like paying committee members stipends. It's a tremendous amount of work that was done by our committee, a tremendous amount of time, not just by folks employed by the city. There was recommendations for professional facilitators to control bias, which is something that we should have done. And I'm not sure if we did. There's a motion coming at the end of this, Mr. Chairman.
You're in your second 5.
Thank you. Again, wanted to make sure that our small organizations are not penalized beyond, their operational budget as it relates to the reimbursement structure. And I'd like to really get
cheaper
a more,
and less time consuming.
an
The city just
understanding
did
by way of a motion and
fiscal
report
sponsorship.
as to what the city
Just fiscal,
actually
fiscal
did
sponsor all of these groups.
as it relates to best practices. What best practices were used for equitable distribution in this whole matter, Mr. Chairman. I know that we should not be applying any parameters that are required that go beyond or exceed any federal stipulations, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we ask the
Don't
city
make no
manager to
sense.
ensure that the city of Worcester will not go beyond and create any additional.
I just totaled up
barriers
everything on the ARPA
outside
dashboard, and it doesn't
of
even
what's
come out to the
federally
amount of
required,
money.
Mr. Chairman. And
that
if we
they
are
saved
doing
us.
so, that we should cease and desist, Mr. Chairman.
What the fuck?
Looking at our equitable funding, Mr. Chairman, and the distribution practices, it's important that we get the report back in order to fully realize the needs and the ability we are to help support our BIPOC-led organizations. Again, the first motion should ensure that we're reaccessing and reassessing our
What
equitable
Betty was trying to
funding
say
distribution
about
practices.
how all the 44 million that's unspent
in order to fully
spoken
realize
for
how we can be that
is
supportive
true.
to these organizations.
It's
Mr.
a very
Chairman. I know
misleading
that,
category to say that the money is unspent because
we've done some things with
it
ARPA
has
funds
a targeted
that
recipient.
I certainly did
Right,
not.
they just haven't
support.
signed.
I know
They
that
haven't
we
given
took
them
ARPA
money.
funds and we
You would
used it
think
for
that that
body
would mean
cameras.
contract
I was
funds,
very much proud
which
to,
is our
to
middle
vote against that.
Right.
That's not the case.
Because that's not what we're supposed to be doing with that money.
There is
We know the
pennies left
disproportionate
for
impact.
money that has
We
not
know what it is.
been
And
promised.
we know where it lands, Mr. Chairman. And, while I understand some of the more established organizations that are perhaps more readily able to provide proper accounting, it's those folks that are closest to the ground, those folks that are closest to the people, those folks that are closest to community that make the most difference, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to as well, in support of item 8K, get a motion asking the city manager, because the numbers seem like they're moving a bit. There's monies that are dedicated already, that we do ask the city manager as a council by way of a motion, that once ending contracts are completed, that any additional funding will be allocated to BIPOC-led organizations who directly provide services and resources to those
Here's
most
46
impacted
bucks.
by the pandemic, Mr. Chairman. The motion.
It's pretty much what the motion says.
Yeah, so it's a city council resolution, a motion, but the council, not the resident, is asking what I referenced. If you'd like me to repeat it, I can. And I'll yield the rest of my time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Manager? Yep.
To the chair, to the council, I just want to clarify something that's extremely important. No ARPA dollars went to body cameras. There was part of revenue recovery, but it was no ARPA dollars went to body cameras. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
It was part of
That's why we
revenue
need a
recovery.
report.
So,
So did
we
you
have
spend revenue on body cameras and then
Councilor
recover it with ARPA dollars?
Peter,
Because
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to run through my questions because some of it was already asked, but I just want to, through the chair to the admin, what were the challenges you had with distributing the funds to the organizations? I know the organizations mentioned it, but I just want to know if there was other, challenges aside from the ones that we've mentioned.
Mr. Dunn?
they were tacky and we hated them.
Through the chair to the councilor, I'm not fully
School of Rock,
sure of
baby.
the scope of the question, but I can tell you one of the challenges that we've certainly had is I think that by the end of
Risky
this,
handwriting.
our office will probably have administered about 1,000 contracts, and I think close to $70 million of the funds. Typically, we have in our grant management staff, what we deal with on an annual basis is about $4 million of federal funds. So just the sheer volume and the stress that it has created on staff in terms of trying to get through 1,000 contracts in the short time period that we've had has certainly been a challenge.
So the
Gotcha.
$2.5
And do you know how many
million
orgs
in
/ how much
administrative
money
overhead
is
wasn't for
committed,
dedicated
but,
staff to handle
there's
this?
an indication that it will not be
Where was
used or
that
cannot
going?
be used?
Where was the administrative overhead going?
Through the chair to the councilor, I do not have a quantifiable number for you on that.
Okay. I would like to add that to one of the reports that I'll be asking for. But what has the strategy been to make these funds more accessible?
Through the chair to the counselor, as we've discussed in previous meetings, there's been a number of these approaches. And I think one of the biggest kind of themes has been that we didn't just create, one program that had so much complexity to it that any applicant or organization, whether it be a nonprofit organization or a small business, or a resident of the city, in order to access them, would have, just this one opportunity or this one program that would have all of those complexities. So we tried to break it up into more manageable pieces based on the input that we received from the community in terms of the impacts of the pandemic and the different programs that we ultimately administered. So we had a variety of programs for small businesses. And I think our outcomes on that in terms of BIPOC-led businesses were actually quite successful, very different than the Paycheck Protection Program from the SBA. So we were pretty proud of that. We had a number of programs for the nonprofit community. I know there's been much attention to the largest one, the Community Projects and Programs, which was about a year or so ago, and then most recently with the cultural pandemic relief grants. But I would say that there have been quite many more of those. And what's, I think, helpful is that, again, like with the federal rule, there are a number of ways of having to classify those activities, classify the programs, the subrecipients or the beneficiaries of the funds, and how that meets the eligibility guidelines in the federal rule. So I think we've cast a very wide range of ways to make impacted families, impacted residents, impacted nonprofits, impacted businesses gain access to the funds because of our creativity and structuring a number of these programs. But with it, in terms of how that program is then structured for its eligibility under the final rule, that's where the different nuances and specific provisions of the Code of Federal Regulations or the final rule come into play. And that's why across these different programs, that might require different levels of reporting or different eligibility parameters or different
all of the laws.
Evaluation criteria in terms of the
all of the
size
laws.
and scope of a
How about
grant.
that?
So it is quite complex, but I think the reason why we did all of these different programs across a portfolio was just that, to create as much accessibility to the variety of stakeholders we have in the community that have been impacted by the pandemic, to give them opportunities to access those dollars.
And after you got feedback from the community around it being not accessible by the reimbursement process and the paperwork and request for information data, was there any other strategies that you implemented or pivoted towards?
Through the chair to the counselor, I think, I guess somewhat ironically, in the case of the latest cultural program, we structured that, I think, in response to just that, in terms of some of the response that we had received from the community on paperwork and reporting and all of that. And I did describe this at the last meeting, I think it was in August, when we submitted the report.
What's up there?
But when you do assistance to nonprofits, there's really two ways of structuring that or categorizing that under the ARPA final rule. In one case, it's where the nonprofit is viewed as a subrecipient. And when they're a subrecipient, this would be how we've structured the community projects and programs, where organizations proposed a particular program or service or project to us that then received funding, and then the dollars were used to carry out that program or service. And that's where reporting comes into play, because from the federal government's perspective on these regulations, if we're using the funds to support that program or service, we do need to have some documentation in terms of the service that was rendered and who benefited from that service. So that's where a lot of the reporting came into play. So when we looked at structuring the cultural pandemic relief, when you do pandemic relief grants, and did it where the nonprofit in this case was viewed as the beneficiary rather than those who they're serving, who's benefiting from their programs and services. In the case of the latest cultural program, the nonprofit organization itself was the beneficiary. And what's great about that is that it doesn't require a lot of reporting about how they're going to use the funds and, what service they're carrying out and who their clients are, who their residents or families are in the community that's benefiting from it, because the organization itself in this case is the beneficiary. The trade-off comes while there's limited reporting requirements. The trade-off is that it specifically says in the final rule, if you are going to do aid to a nonprofit organization that was harmed by the pandemic, in terms of the impact and, providing that relief to them, then it has to be a 501c3. It's very black and white. We couldn't, in the case of the subrecipients, all that they had to be was a nonprofit organization. They didn't actually have to have their 501c3 because they weren't viewed as the beneficiary. It was really about who are you serving with your program or project. And that is how we kind of account for the outcomes or the expectations of the federal rule in that case. But it specifically says in black and white that if you're providing pandemic relief grants to a nonprofit organization, it must be a 501c3. So that's when the fiscal agency came back into play, was that we didn't have any flexibility in that case. It was great that we had other flexibilities that responded to community concern around not having to have all this reporting and cash flow, reimbursement issues or all that. It had all of those great benefits by structuring a program in that way, but it comes with trade-offs in the sense that you had to be a 501c3, and if you didn't, then you could utilize a fiscal agent. And we created that provision to create that flexibility, because the federal rule says that the disbursement must go to a 501c3 organization in that case. And then the other limitation that it had is that it said that since that organization is the beneficiary, you need to be able to demonstrate how they were harmed by the pandemic. So they had to actually be in existence when the pandemic occurred. So that created some limitations on organizations that maybe were created in the last year or so. They wouldn't be eligible because they weren't in existence when the onset of the coronavirus happened. And then it said that what that amount of aid or relief that you're providing to that organization as a beneficiary must be commensurate and reasonable.
You ever
to
go
the
through
harm
like
that
GuideStar
that
just for fun?
experienced. So that's
It's
where
like,
this lens of like,
no,
it's not to
I
discount
don't.
the
but
value that any of
I-
the smaller organizations bring to
in
the
trying
community.
to
We value
do the
all of our organizations
nonprofit
and what
thing
they do. And
with the
in many
video
cases,
store
it's very unique what some of these organizations do.
Very
and that's
illuminating
appreciated. It's not a
how
reflection
much
of
of
like
like
whether or not that's valued. It's just
I used to
showing
do
there is
that
some
out
lens
of
or
boredom,
correlation to the fact that
dig
if
through
you are,
GuideStar
if you do have
filings of
smaller
organizations
revenues
that
or
were
smaller
front of
expenses,
mind.
then you just
It's
can't
absolutely
justify
amazing
certain things like,
the way many of them
beyond,
are funded, and
multiples
just
of
as
your
amazing
budget
how
or
little
expenses and say
reporting
that
they
that's,
actually do with their
reasonable
funds
in
from year
terms
to
of
year
the
because nobody
financial
cares. There's
impact that the
just
pandemic
so
had
little
on the
oversight
organization. So it
unless
created some limitations
like
in
an
that
actual
sense. But again,
scandal
I
is
think
proven.
that how we tried to create a portfolio of programs across the spectrum, it wasn't like that was the only opportunity for an organization to potentially access those resources, because in the case of the cultural festival programs, where we were directly supporting expenses related to special events and festivals that were free and open to the public, we very specifically said, if you're a BIPOC-led organization, then you're eligible for $12,500 to support your festival. If you're not, then you're capped at $10,000. So we've again done things
extra
across a
$2,000.
variety of different tools and
Man,
strategies.
talk about 40
to make,
acres.
These dollars accessible in different ways, to try to have equity resonate in different ways. And I agree with the manager's comment that I'm not saying that every decision that was made or every grant that was made is perfect. It's certainly not. But I think that the intent and the effort was there. So whether or not that, could be done better in retrospect, yeah, there's always opportunity to, have improvements, or in hindsight, maybe this could have, worked better in that sense. And so I think we've tried to at least take those considerations and feedback into account as we've moved throughout the total time frame associated with ARPA. I think what we've been doing in the last 6 months is a lot more effective and a lot better than what we were doing in the first 6 months of ARPA.
Thank you. And I do want to note that, for me, hearing that like we can do better in the future is actually really hurtful, to know that people lost the opportunity this time and that we're going to wait for the next time, especially for BIPOC orgs. Especially hearing that BIPOC orgs were the ones to give this feedback and to lead the charge for us to do better. And in the last, distribution, they've seen that they didn't. They made it easier for orgs to be the beneficiary, and then to not see that they got those funds, and then to say we can do better. That's really hurtful, just to put that out there. But I will continue with my questioning, which is someone mentioned the HUD rules versus the ARPA rules. And could you explain the difference and the requirement and why we have that if we still do?
Through the chair to the counselor, I think it really speaks to the eligibility itself in expenditures. So with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, I think you're referring to specifically their Community Development Block Grant Program. Yes. And so that has a national objective associated with it. The national objective that we have to meet with CDBG expenditures for nonprofit grants every year with public services and public facilities is benefiting low to moderate income families in the city. And then there are different ways of classifying eligible programs and projects under that broad national objective of benefiting low to moderate income families. In the case of ARPA, really the eligibility has been, are you benefiting residents or organizations or businesses that are located in a qualified census tract? Because the federal government designated certain qualified census tracts as disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Then it's also disproportionately impacted races and ethnicities.
So
and
the
then the third area
eco-terrorism
being low-income families again. So there's a few different ways to classify an eligible activity as it relates to ARPA, but the common thread through all of it is really this 2 CFR 200 in the sense that that is like what's called the uniform administrative requirements under the Code of Federal Regulations that applies both the CDBG expenditures as well as ARPA expenditures. And so there are some, commonalities that I think people are seeing and feeling as it relates to some of the financial kind of controls or reporting or expectations that the federal government has on us in terms of our role in administering those funds. That's a common thread. It's a very robust regulation, hundreds of pages long. And I think that's the common thread between the two.
So is there a way to shorten the amount of requirements and the paperwork and the data recording? Or is what you're offering to the organizations to do exactly what the federal ARPA money is requesting from us?
So through the chair to the council, and I think the manager was kind of starting to describe this in some sense, is that when we first approached some of the community projects and programs, the contracts associated with that, with the reporting, is we were looking for demographic information for those that they'd be serving in the community. So one, making sure that they're Worcester residents, because these are Worcester dollars. So we're making sure that we're supporting Worcester residents, and then seeing if they might qualify as an eligible beneficiary based on their income status or based on their race or ethnicity, or their specific address if they live in a qualified census tract. What we tried to do in response to some of the concern around that level of information being gathered from clients of the organizations was that we really don't need to check like all three of those eligibility boxes. We really only need to check one. So if you're gathering information and you know that all of your clients are on Mass Health, or you know that all of your clients are on federal SNAP benefits, well, and that meets the test right there. And so we've tried to provide that level of flexibility that we just get the minimum amount necessary to ensure that we're meeting the ARPA eligibility requirements for who's benefiting from the dollars. But we believe we described this to council, it was probably a year ago at this point, that one of the trade-offs of that approach as well, and just being eyes wide open about it, is that it will create some limitations in our ability to report back to council and the community at the end of all this to say who benefited from these, as the manager was describing, like how many were men, how many were women, how many were from the Hispanic Latinx population, how many were from the indigenous population, because in creating that flexibility or lack of detail with some of the reporting on who's benefiting from it, then it's just going to limit our ability to then speak to
it
the
would be
demographic details
to
later
brag
on in
about
terms
it
of
if
who
we funded the
benefited from the
organizations
funds.
that deserve it.
I do want to second Councilor King motion of removing any requirements that is unnecessary for our organizations to access the funds. What really struck me was what the AIDS Project Worcester brought up, which is just the meals. I think for me that's kind of heartbreaking to send people home who are hungry and just offer 1 or 2 meals, especially as someone who did the Southeast Asian Coalition like pantry and doing even free holiday meals to people, because that we often know that the person who could actually get to the organization represents many people who they could share that meal with. When an unhoused person come to a place and get some funds or some food, I know that they can actually give so much more to their community. And so when we limit and we ask for these type of details, that's not okay for me. As a counselor, I'd rather people have food than for me to know, oh yeah, there's actually 10 people that benefited from this. I want to trust people and trust community. And I think that's what we need to lead with. I do want to say that what I've seen is that, the BIPOC orgs have gave feedback, have fought for this process to be easier, and the ones who benefited was the last category. And that is really harmful. The other thing I want to bring up is this notion of equity, right? Because what I hear is that big orgs endured more damage. Small orgs endured less financial damage. And I think about the people who these org represents, as we mentioned, the board members, the staff, the people who are there. We want to look at who really got more damage during COVID and who actually leads these organizations. For me, it's not okay to just think, oh, big orgs endured more damage. When I think about equity, I think about the impact of giving $100 to someone who's living paycheck to paycheck, or $1,000 to someone who has money in the bank and savings. What is more impactful? And what is equity here? And imagine giving the person who's paycheck to paycheck actually $1,000. What is the impact there when they could actually live securely and stably for a little bit longer so that they don't have to be scared of being hungry and being scared that they're not going to have a meal next? And yet, once again, we're saying, no, you can't take more food. And once again, that's just a narrative from the AIDS Project Worcester, which I truly believe in. They're on the front lines. That's what I'm going to listen to. And then I also, once again, want to go back to this notion of equity, because I think we're mistaking what equity means. Because this is a co-option of equity when large orgs get more money and small orgs do not. I don't believe that is equity. Equity has been fought by BIPOC folks, and they are coming to the table now to ask for the equity. And then the last thing I want to bring out is we shouldn't have grants where we're dangling money in front of BIPOC orgs and saying, here, try to access them. If we give them the grant, we need to ensure and guarantee that they can have it. It is not okay for me to say, hey, you got $200K. Good luck getting it, because now you have to do this reimbursement project. This reimbursement process, and you have to give us all this data on your people. I think we can do better, and I don't think doing better is about next time. Doing better is about now. And so I do want to motion for a report on strategies to ensure that these funding can be accessible to the orgs and to reconcile all these challenges. And it should happen as soon as possible, because next time is not okay with me. Next time is you're waiting for another pandemic for people to die and then give them the money and have a better process. That's not okay with me. And so I really urge the admin to do this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Haxhiaj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a lot of it has been said, and
step up to
I
the
agree
plate
with it.
to
Taking
toe
notes
the
and
line.
writing down. I think
To
we're
find middle
very
ground where it
similar
doesn't need to
on
exist.
A lot of things that we said tonight.
And make it appear to the listening
So I
public
guess a
as
question
compromise.
through the chair, the administration is, you mentioned
Anything but compromise.
that eventually you guys will go through the pending contracts. Is there a time frame on that to be able to get back and let us know what is available?
Mr. Manager.
Through the chair to the councilor, we were providing quarterly updates over the past years to the council in terms of the updates on the dollars. In the past, I want to say past couple of months, we've been providing monthly updates, and we'll continue to provide monthly updates because we have till the end of December 31st of 2024 for these dollars to be contracted. If they're not contracted, then we risk the possibility of losing the funds or having to give the funds back to the federal government. Once the funds are contracted, any entity that has received those funds or has contracted those funds has till the end of 2026 to expense those dollars. And so that's currently the timelines that's set before us. But any potential changes to the ARPA dollars, as I stated before, in conversation with my department heads and understanding their projects, their understanding the scope, the timelines, I'm going to be coming to council on a monthly basis saying, we got to move money. And if I need to come sooner based on that, then I will come sooner back to council saying, I will be moving money to do X, Y, and Z. And like I said it before, in the last few weeks, when we moved some money, we moved money specifically to rental assistance, because we've been hearing about the pressures of the rental market here in this community and the challenges of affordable housing. And those dollars went pretty quickly. And so we put an additional $600,000+ to rental assistance for the families in our city.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, so if there's money that does become available, is there another process to that, or is it just like who's going to be able to, again, do they have to reapply for this, or how does that work? Like, how did these BIPOC communities are able to get this money?
Through the chair to the councilor. That process then lays on my shoulders to then determine how do we allocate that. And I usually make that decision based on what I'm hearing in the council, based on what I hear in the community. And that's why, again, the last time we moved some money, we put it into rental assistance. The last time we moved some money, we put it into youth employment. We've put it into food insecurity. We've put it into energy costs, because those are the feedback that I get from community and partners that have spoken tonight, but also individual councilors who have spoken to me, or even in this floor. So taking that into consideration, this discussion tonight, that's something we will take into consideration. If monies were to come available, either next month or in the next few weeks, then we will make a decision on how to allocate those dollars. And that, again, will be something that will be also presented to the council, as we've done previously.
Okay, thank you. So just wondering, when it comes to helping these, again, these agencies acquire this money, and say their annual budget is $60,000, $70,000 and they're asking for more, at the end of the day, the ARPA was to be able to help them build capacity and expand on what they're doing in our communities. And one of the frustrating things, and Councilor Tu had mentioned it as well, is next time. Unfortunately, our community continues to hear next time. I think I grew up hearing next time all the time when things just didn't go right, and I think that's really unfortunate. So I guess during this process, was there assistance provided with them to help them understand what they're seeing now, where the difficulties the administration had to be able to give these agencies this money? And how were there conversations to help support them and say, listen, we know this is this is how much you're asking for, but unfortunately the guidelines are saying this and that. Was there conversation back and forth to say, listen, we want to support you, but this is what you need to do going forward. This is how we can help you do this, through the process of applying for the money.
Mr. Manager.
To the chair of the council, specifically to these cultural dollars, I think Peter alluded to this. These cultural dollars were specifically designed, this program was designed for pandemic relief. It's not to build capacity. And I think that's the misunderstanding here, specifically to this particular program of $2.9 million. There's other programs, community-based project programs, and other programs, mental health programs, that the application process was for the purposes of building capacity or new programs or new ideas, et cetera. But these cultural specific programs was pandemic relief, and one of the parameters there was you had to exist during the pandemic as well. And so those parameters were discussed with everyone that applied. There was individuals who had certain questions related to that. There was individuals who applied who were not part, or their business did not exist, or their entity did not exist during the pandemic, and that was communicated as well during that time frame. And so there was a lot of back and forth and conversations with the administration to the recipients or the individuals who applied. But again, to clarify, these specific dollars related to the cultural component were for specific to pandemic relief during a specific time frame that you existed during the pandemic. It wasn't to build capacity as an institution.
Unholy nexus.
Thanks again. And so then, and knowing that, was there
To
another
make it
conversation
just
where
absolutely-
there are other dollar available, right? There's other opportunities to acquire
so much of what's
some
been said
financial
during this
support.
conversation
So
has meant nothing.
me knowing if I'm applying,
And it gets to what Tu was saying earlier, but it really is like
but we have other
so much more insulting when
that brought to them. Did they know anything about
they
that?
fuck
Or
you
were there's things
and
in
then
place
spend
within the
hours
administration to
wringing
help
their
the
hands
agencies?
about
They couldn't acquire
how
that
bad they
specific
feel about
from
it.
that
You're right.
from that dollar
You
amount
know?
from somewhere else.
To the chair, to the councilor, this is the last RFP that we submitted related to a specific
our hands were
program
tied.
on ARPA. And so there's no other public opportunity that we're proposing out there an RFP process on. The projects that you're alluding to had already happened, and multiple agencies, even agencies who have received these cultural dollars, have also received other funding from other programs that we submitted in ARPA. And so it's not like there's other additional opportunities that we're going to be submitting RFPs for. That has already been completed. There's been multiple grants awarded to many organizations in the city. And like I said, there are organizations that receive dollars through the cultural program that also receive dollars in other buckets within the ARPA allocations.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
What did he ask? And what
Councilor Russell?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try and be brief.
No, you're not. Jesus
First of all, I
Christ,
support
hate it when they
sending
say
this item to the manager to come back with a report. That's the first part. But Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I can remember being down the hall wearing a mask, the city council meeting, probably 3+ years ago, when I had an item on the agenda that was very similar to this, complaining about how, and I used at the time Discover Central Mass and the Food Hub, as how they got awarded their funds through the ARPA program with the previous administration, and how there was a long set of red tape for other
Heartbreaking. The worst person
organizations.
you know makes a good
And
point.
asking at that time, that administration to try and ease up that process. So this whole issue and this whole conversation, Mr. Chairman, is nothing new for me and nothing new for most of the members of this council, because we've had this discussion years ago when we've advocated to the administration. But it's important to be clear that under our form of government, the city manager is our chief executive officer. And under this federal program, the city manager gets to make the decision on these fundings. These items are not something that the city council can vote or has the authority to vote for, but we do have the authority and, quite frankly, the moral need
Imperative.
to advocate for programs and needs in the community. And that's something that I know myself and other members of this council have advocated for.
Thanks to all the real
Mr.
ones
Chairman,
sticking with us tonight instead
the
of
kids
watching the vice
at
presidential
Vernon Hill
debate.
Park
Has that started
were
yet?
promised $1 million from ARPA money.
No.
They were promised that by
It's
the
still
previous
the pregame.
administration and even this administration,
Yay.
when it took over, that there was going to be $1 million in ARPA money put into that neighborhood, because that neighborhood, along with the neighborhood around Mulcahy Field
Roman
on Dorchester Street, was
is having a
designated as
weird
one of the
day today.
neighborhoods that had been hit hardest by COVID-19. They were promised that money.
God, we
Mr.
are
Chairman,
only
that
on
money
one
was
item of
moved.
this
It was
agenda.
spent, actually, some of it at Mulcahy, some of it.
I woke up this morning and Roman and Oslo were sleeping on the couch
$1
together.
million that they were told that they didn't have.
Something they've never willingly done before.
If there is extra money available, I would
And they hung
suggest
out together the entire
I
day,
would advocate for,
which is
that-
great,
that
but
we
it
should
did
be
make me
looking
feel a
at
little
things
excluded.
Like the things we promised to the neighborhoods that were hardest hit by COVID-19, specifically like the parks improvements at Vernon, parks improvements.
here we go.
meeting The projects that were in the plan at Mulcahy Field that were promised. Mr. Chairman, we had to go to the state of Massachusetts to ask them to give us $7 million in their ARPA money to put windows on East Middle School, a project that's in the hopper now and about to be done. The city of Worcester is helping with those funds, but the majority of that money came from ARPA money from the state of Massachusetts ARPA money.
Say
fund.
hi, everybody. Say
So,
hi
Mr.
to Roman.
I just am concerned also that when you even look at the road money that was put in place for repairs and resurfacing of roads, the argument was made by the previous city manager that he would do the list of streets that would be had the worst rating on the streets. Well, guess what? Most of those streets were all on the west side. They weren't in our urban areas. They weren't. They were on the west side, because on the west side, the streets are longer. And the funding was broken up by
Say
districts.
hello to the people.
Councilors from the west side didn't have the money over the years to keep up with that percentage-wise. So many of, or most of, the money that was done on the street repairs were not on the urban neighborhoods. We should be looking at those urban neighborhoods if there is extra money to be done to try and address some of the streets in our core urban neighborhoods, to try and see if there's extra funds that are available there. Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask the manager one clear question, just so that, is there $44 million available? And I think you've told me the answer to it, but I just
Roman
want
loves you all
to
too.
community that money is not, like extra money, is it?
Mr. Manager, I think I asked that earlier. but-
I think you did, but I'm trying to make it crystal clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
through the chair to the council. No, the current money right now is not available. It's allocated for
Yeah,
specific
check this out.
projects. If there are specific projects in the pipeline that will not come to fruition, then those monies will become available. Then it will give me the opportunity to then reallocate them.
Is the street repairs, the street repaving, was that in that 44 million? Was that already signed out?
I can't speak to that specifically. I know that's embedded as part of that. Water and sewer infrastructure is embedded as part of this. So there's a lot that's embedded as part of this effort.
So best case scenario, Mr. Chairman, through you to the manager, what do you think is going to be there? If you were a bet man, would it be a number that was less than 10? Was it less than 20? Was it less than 5? I don't want to hold you to it.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying
Ooh,
to
that-
give the community an idea of
That
what's
bus
out
is
there.
wildin', Yanni.
There's not a perception that there's 40 some odd $1 million out there that's sitting on a table that we're not utilizing. That's going to go back to the federal government.
Through the chair, as of last month, when we discussed all this and with all the cabinet members in terms of the projects, the bids that are currently out right now, projects that are being bidded or RFPs that are being created, et cetera, we identified $600,000+, and I moved that into rental assistance just a few weeks back. Currently, right now, based on the current state, I haven't engaged the cabinet back after that report. Best case scenario. could there
Camber,
be a
yeah, we'll
possibility
put it
that
up in
we
a little
could
bit. I'll share
another
it.
600 or even perhaps $1 million, perhaps, but I don't guarantee that.
Okay. So that's the kind of numbers we're talking about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to be clear about that, and I look forward to a report coming back from the administration as soon as possible with this. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, so we're going to send this item to committee. You spoke twice already, Councilor.
What,
Hey, that's
what?
it's the new rule we put last time.
I was the first one to talk.
Yeah, you spoke. We went through your second 5.
You said I was into my second 5, Mr. Chairman.
You have 1 minute left. I actually wrote it down. But going forward, when you go into your second 5, this is the rule we passed last week, 2 weeks ago. That when you start your second 5, that's your second
We
time
didn't pass,
speaking.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, we didn't pass any new rules relative to city council last week.
And
That was
we
for
reiterate,
budget
no.
subcommittee.
He is right. It was for the budget.
That was for budget subcommittee. Nothing, I don't believe that any rules changed relative to the city
Okay, so
council.
going forward, then this will be the rule going forward. You speak your second 5 minutes. That's your
New
second
rule.
time speaking.
Wait, why did they vote on the rule if he could just impose it?
This is the new rule
Just,
going
can you
forward.
clarify that again?
So basically, under the rules of the council, when you speak for going to your second 5, that's considered your second time speaking.
That's the new interpretation, because that's not been the
No, I'm
practice.
usually pretty easy, but
That's cute, though.
I know
It's
we
really
talked about
cute.
that.
That's cute, Mr. Chairman.
I mean,
Mr.
that's
Chair, I'd just like to get a report back.
patently false. That's
by
what.
way of a motion.
He was right. It was for the budget.
regarding the budget item that was put forward by City Manager Augustus.
Dude, new rule.
At the
That's
close of
like such a rule.
2022 that identified $200,000 in ARPA funding that was partially to pay towards the $1.5 million money for police body camera programs. This is important to me to get that report back.
Got so
I was
excited that
on
Roman was coming down. And I just wasted a
negative end of
victory
1 to
crown.
10 vote. I appreciate it. If in fact that never occurred, that means I was actually on the winning end of a 1 to 10 losing vote. So I'd just like to get a report back on exactly what that flow is like. I know there was discussion around it being reimbursement for lost revenue, but in that, I'd like that item to be part of that report, just so I can have a proper historical accounting, and perhaps we can figure out the flow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to send this item by Mayday Morales to the MO committee. And then we're going to take the other, after those other reports, asked by the council, take those collectively. All those in favor, opposed, so awarded. Okay. Okay. Now, communications of city manager. Transfer information communication of the appointment of is it Angelique Webster to the Worcester Arts Council. Motion to put that on file. All those, I just want to thank for the service, and then place that on file. All those in favor, opposed, so awarded. We are on recommended adoption of the amendment to DRO Part 1, Chapter 13, Section 79, related to establishment of reduced speed school zones. I'm going to refer that to traffic and parking. All those in favor, opposed, so
Mr. Chair.
ordered. Councilor Russell?
I would just ask the administration to add to that the private, parochial, and charter school
So
locations.
get additional report for other schools besides the Worcester Public Schools. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. We are on 9.12A, Tourism Information Communication of the status of the existing firefighter turnout gear. Okay, Chief, and send out to public safety. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Tourism Information Communication of the location of all fire hydrants in the city of Worcester. Send that to public safety. All those in favor, opposed, so Councilor.
What number was that? I'm sorry.
Councilor Hida, what's that?
What number was that?
That was 9.12B.
B? Okay. May I?
Yeah, sure. Councilor Hida, go ahead.
Wait, you're gonna.
So,
Who are you?
sorry, we were moving pretty fast. When it comes to the fire hydrants, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When it comes to the fire hydrants, I have several questions. So, one, it says private fire hydrants are responsibility of the property owner to maintain and generally to maintain. I don't know who can help me answer these questions. To the chair, to administration. How are they maintained and who makes sure that the residents are maintaining them?
I can get my own fire hydrant.
Chief?
For the chair to the councilor. So
I'm on fire hydrant,
that's
I
generally
think I
not,
should all the
I don't
time.
want to conflate that with like a private street. So it wouldn't be a hydrant that's on a private street. It's normally what we call, excuse me, a yard hydrant that may be part of a like a Norton, St. Gobain, Wyman Gordon
Classic
type
bit.
facility. Usually in those places, larger warehouse areas would have put them in there to meet their requirements, either for insurance or for fire flow. We generally, they're not followed up on. They're private hydrants. So it's up to them to test them, maintain them, and that is generally why we do not use them unless it is an absolute last resort.
So you're saying if it's a last resort, we have no idea if they're actually maintained well or anything like that?
No, we have no idea if they're maintained well, so we basically assume that they are not there. We don't assume. We make that our standard practice. Is we are going to lay a supply line to a publicly fed hydrant whenever possible.
And
So
all
basically,
the way
hopefully we
back
never need to use
in
them.
November of 2021.
Correct.
City Manager Augustus had it on her
All right,
agenda.
that
They were
seems
gonna
odd
use
to me.
ARPA money.
Okay.
It's all flooding back to me now. They're gonna use ARPA
Moving
money
on, I
to
guess.
buy body cameras.
Right.
And Christian Table.
In relation to where all these fire hydrants are located, I noticed that there's many of them that are low pressure, and I'd just like to know, what's in play to I guess bring them up to. There's many like high pressure or even super pressure. Is there, or is that
And then
the
it
idea
was,
of just
it was a
moving
1 to 10 vote.
to
Chief?
to the chair to the
That
administration?
Through the
ARPA would
councilor
not
to the
be
chair.
spent on body cameras.
To the councilor through the chair. It's part of the system where low pressure, it just means that it's gravity fed, basically. So it's coming from the reservoir and it's using gravity to feed that pressure through the distribution system. Very common way to feed these systems. The super pressure has a pumping station that's pushing it usually up a hill to give it that added pressure. In general, we have the right type of hydrants in the right places in the city of Worcester. So let's take Chandler Street for example. I believe it's a 20-inch main on one side of the street. It's low pressure, but it's very high volume. When our trucks connect to that hydrant, they're going to create the pressure that's needed with that volume. In other areas where you don't have that type of volume, but you do have that pressure, so that's sending you that volume basically of the water. So it's kind of when you put the system all together, it works.
No, and I don't doubt that it works, but you said the truck connects to it, but there's actually a relay.
No, so what's going to happen is when you end up in a
why are we going so
low
deep
pressure
into,
situation
like,
and you have to
the weeds
create
tonight?
a relay pumping situation?
Yeah, right. Why are we
so let's say
asking
you're
about
going to be
fire
more than 1,000 yards away from a water
Very
source.
annoying.
That's where we'd want to consider putting a relay into place. So they're going to connect to that.
Just watch like big
hydrant
truck
with the
YouTube if you want to
engine,
find out how this stuff
and
works.
within 1,000 feet, there'll be another engine that will
Don't touch a truck.
that pump up to the next destination. But those are very rare occasions that we have to do that.
All right. Yeah. So again, just when I was going through the list, I noticed that there's a lot of low pressure, and I noticed the low pressure is District 4, Illinois Street, Lafayette, Murray Ave, Pleasant Street, from downtown all the way up to Park Ave. There's a long stretch on Southbridge Street, and there's also a lot of low pressures near some of the schools: Woodland Street School, Claremont, Goddard, UPCS, Canterbury, and the Clark University neighborhood. So I just find that really very interesting that there's a lot of low pressure throughout the areas. And there was a fire on Hancock Street where there is low pressure. And I'm not trying to say that was an issue, but I'd like to know, with that low pressure and that fire, was there, it says here, deploy a relay operation? Do you know if that was needed?
Through the chair to the councilor, no, a relay was not needed at that fire. I honestly can't remember the last time that we did a relay pumping operation. It may have been up on Route 20 before they fixed the mains up there or upgraded the mains up there. The low pressure system, the way the distribution system works is that it's not, one hydrant is not being just fed from one main. They're coming in from all directions, and it's just water constantly circulating. And so the low pressure means that it doesn't have anything behind it. There's no mechanical means of moving that behind it.
It's not a pump.
It is
Gravity
just that static pressure. That the pressure behind it is strong enough. Worcester's water pressure is enviable across the nation.
Wow.
Where you can open up a hydrant and you're going to get between 80 and 100 psi. That is not the case in most places.
This is different than other places.
Which helps
we're built different here.
improve pressure. Became the standard in Chicago, where they're happy to get 60 psi if they get out of a hydrant. That's not Worcester's experience. We're getting much more water out of these hydrants.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I just noticed that there was a large amount of low pressure, and when you have to connect to something else, there's an opportunity for something to happen, something not to go the right way. Not to say they're not
Talk
trained,
to him
but things can happen
in the hall.
versus just connecting from one truck and just dumping out the water to put out the fire. So again, just looking at that more of a safety issue and understanding more of how the flow works. I know that the city has a good water pressure. But just seeing that,
of course,
and especially around the schools, and then
there's
a lot of streets. Like I said, Illinois and
I knew that
Lafayette,
longer
there's a
than
lot
pretty
of
much
apartments
anybody.
around there. So to hear
All-American city like this, of course you get great water pressure.
to know that you have to tap off to other hydrants and
The
to
best
fill
water
one truck
pressure.
is again.
No one's ever had better water
There is
pressure.
a space for unfortunately something to happen. So I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Toomey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate all of
Kate's here?
the data that's here. I'm a visual learner, and so I'm wondering if there's access to a citywide.
With her glasses
map,
off. That is a very
that
apt,
can have
with
before
a
we
very
get
apt
to
metaphor.
Committee meeting.
You don't have to learn about this
Chief.
stuff.
Through the chair to the councilor, my recommendation is maybe
You
if we
approve
could
the
meet
budget
and we could
and you hire or
view
fire
what's
the city
available
manager.
on the internal city website.
You don't have to know how the
Generally,
fire
we
hydrants
try
work.
to
You
be
don't.
careful with,
You don't have to know that.
the
Can we get a
publication
cute
of,
robot fire hydrant to come in and entertain Kate and show her
I
how
understand
fire hydrants work?
completely. So I'd be happy to do that. But again, I'm just visual
Okay.
looking at this, and
Jesus
I appreciate the questions my colleague
Imagine
raised
the
regarding
underling at the fire department
high
whose
pressure and
desk
low
it
pressure and
hits
the geography
tomorrow
too.
morning
You know, it's
that they have to put together.
it's interesting though. Even on my own
a
street,
crayon
there's a
visual
low
of the
pressure
fire
and a high
hydrant
pressure
system for Kate Toomey.
on one street. So
No. Within
Very
2 weeks,
interesting
you're
to
going to
see.
see pictures on Twitter
All right,
of
thank you very
Kate
much.
doing a ride along with an engine company
Send that to public
in an
safety.
ill-fitted turnout coat, trying to open up a
Send
hydrant with a
information
giant wrench.
communication relative to the internal police detail spending in fiscal years 23 and 24. We'll send to public safety.
And then she's going to use it as campaign
Those in
collateral,
favor,
and
opposed, so ordered.
nobody will file an ethics complaint.
20 minutes spent on the fire
Okay.
hydrants. Absolutely
Chairman,
nobody
Could you just repeat the last number that you
talks
sent to
about the
public
police
safety?
collective
I
bargaining.
may have had a
The police
question.
9.313A. The police report on
The police
details.
collective bargaining
Yeah, could I
agreement.
just ask
all get
that if any
3%
additional
raises
information
every year contractually.
regarding
No
the
one's
amount
gonna
of money the
touch that
city
one?
would gain
Right.
from those details,
Oh.
I know there's a percentage,
Mo
would
Bergman
be
does.
included in some of that information.
An additional report.
I don't know if it's going to be included in that report, but I'd like to see that information, perhaps over the last 4 years or so. What monies
Okay.
the city was to receive as a result of details.
So, okay, what you can answer tonight. Okay, we'll still get a report on
That's
that.
fine.
Okay,
Either way, thank you.
okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Haxhiaj.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so question here is about 650 unfilled details. Can I get a better understanding of
You guys been following the Brooklyn fire hydrant aquarium?
Was there specific
No.
comments?
Through the chair to the council, and I'll let the deputy add
You
to
find it on
any
YouTube,
information.
but yeah, there's a fire
Um,
hydrant in Brooklyn that's been leaking for
Details
months.
when they're not filled.
And this
when
dude
they're
just
not
like
filled,
turned
there's
like
a number
a
of reasons why.
concrete little well that it sits in
But the
into
majority
an aquarium.
of
It's like full of
that
fish,
it
and
comes with, there's no.
there's like all these
officers
videos
that
of just like
are
adults
available
just sitting
or willing
around
to take those
staring
things
at like
that are
fish
related
for
to
hours on
the
it.
request.
In
So
the
there's
middle of the
multiple
street.
requests happening on a daily basis, on an
That's
annual
pretty sick.
basis.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty
officers,
charming in a weird
Yeah.
way.
put their names down that they want to be available, make themselves available for any particular detail depending on the time. And so when it shows that number that details are gone filled is because it hasn't been officers available to be, and it's not something that's required or mandatory because again, it's a detail that they have to voluntarily volunteer to go fill that. If it's overtime, it's a different discussion and a different element that involves funding, but the details specifically, but I'll let the deputy explain a little further on that.
Just a little context for that. That 650 is not is individual specific details. Oftentimes what we find is a vendor will request 6 or 7 details for a rather large job. We will prioritize our job field, instead get four details instead of 6 or 7. So I don't want to leave the impression that there's 650 jobs that were unfilled with no police officer there. I'd say the vast majority of those were, again, where several officers requested, the detail officer has prioritized. Instead of giving them 6 or 7 officers, he'll have 3 or 4 officers.
As somebody that books police details for work all the time,
Is it
I would
safe to
say
say
the phrase "you get what you get"
some of the details
is
just weren't filled at
pretty pretty apt.
That can happen. I would say that would be a minority of the positions, but yes, that has happened where a detail will not be filled. Again, the detail office will prioritize according to public safety which details which should be filled, and there could be details that where there would be no police officer there.
So would that specific project, the detail, does that continue, does that move on, or does that have to come to a stop?
Yeah, it will continue to move on. If there's a detail that we need to have somebody there for safety, for them to continue, there will be a police officer there.
And so just to get a better understanding, so for safety reasons, how do we determine what's considered an officer to be detailed versus we don't need an officer there?
Why is he
Well, the
doing
can't
this right
fulfill it.
now?
Right, so the detail officers, they have a lot of experience. They know the details, they know the intersections, they know the nature of the work. So they employ their
I
experience.
mean, the rules that he's asking these
as far as
questions,
determining
like
priority wise, which
essentially annoying
definitely
them,
is an
but,
officer which can proceed without.
But not to any end.
I just don't want to
So
see
they
it.
can proceed without an officer, so that's not something that's in play, there's no policy in play to the administration.
It's but like he's not toward any end.
To the chair, no, currently does not. And again, it's very situational.
Yeah, this is like the least efficient way to annoy
A
people.
bank needing a detail, or we have a massive event in the city that requires 10 to 20 details in the city. And sometimes the department has to make those decisions or what's a priority. Shutting down streets and needing officers to attend to that, or filling a bank detail. I'm not saying that the bank detail wasn't filled. I'm just saying those are examples of where they have to make
I
those
was hoping
desperate
you'd use
decisions of
Star
what's
as
a
an
priority.
example. That would have been funny.
And last question, this is before I took council. There was maybe some talks about helping the police with details, residents or maybe.
Fine, I'll do it.
Worcester employees. Is that something that?
Give me a gun.
Did I make that up, or is that something that is a possibility to help with police details, or if it's like, you know,
They try and hand me like the flag.
streets or whatever
I'm
it
like,
may
what's
be.
that for? And then
Because to
I
see
need a gun.
give me shooty.
unfulfilled, even if it's say 20, is there opportunities for residents to be trained to have some type of workforce that we could put forward to help with these details?
Police academy.
That's actually a really good point, though, because the only reason we don't use flaggers,
To the council, I think
Jeff
one of the
Stratton's point,
challenges when
is it's
especially
the prevailing
when we're
wage.
opening up,
Like we wouldn't save any money
that
by
elements,
having
it can provide a element of
doing
safety.
being
Right?
flaggers
Officers
or whatever
are
the case may
trained,
be.
they have the ability to respond to issues, and many of them do.
But if we don't have the people, then like
And
Right.
so we have to be very careful on.
I
terms of
want
how
them to
who,
use like
gets to be able to provide those specific
flaggers
details.
because
And again, it's
I
something
want
that
the
again, it's
traffic to actually be
contracted by the
managed.
Unions is something that has been uniform in terms of the process, but we want to be sensitive to the fact that some of these details require the expertise of officers to be able to adhere to the safety of the road, or the safety of the environment in terms of where they're serving that detail.
Right. So thank you. So I guess my concern with that.
that's
is
totally what I mean, Yanni. I mean, if we're
saying,
making the argument, or the police department's making the argument, they're having a hard time filling slots, so they're having a hard time with
then there's a detail that doesn't have someone there.
personnel. Then now would be the time to have
Still
civilians
put
doing
people in danger
all
regardless
sorts of
if
shit.
someone
Let's do
not
citizens
there
on
that doesn't
patrol.
have the expertise,
Yeah,
but
just
Let's
paw
do it.
patrol. We'll just send our dogs out there.
doesn't have the expertise. Understand what
Get
I'm
Steve Gutenberg out.
saying? So is that something that, are we looking to try to fix that situation? Because at any point in time, we can have an emergency, and if there's no one there, we put ourselves in danger.
Manager.
Yeah, to the chair, to the council. Again, that's something that the chief and I would have to spend some time discussing strategies on how do we make sure that some of these detailed jobs and reduce that number a little bit more. We've made some headways in our contracts with the unions to try to increase that detail rate as well, to give them the opportunity to make it more incentivize them to be able to utilize the opportunity to make details. But again, it's something that I'm going to have to go back to the chief and fully assess and come up with some strategies on how we could be able to move forward on that.
Okay. And lastly, is it something that we can ask some of these agencies or whoever pulls out these for the details, that they can help with providing security on their own? And how do we, if there's ways we can assist them with that? If they require 3, we can send 1 officer, and if they have 2 security officers on their own, that helps.
Through the chair to the council, sometimes that happens, right? Sometimes that entity has their own kind of public, like security officers or security personnel that they want to be able to utilize for their event, in addition to details at the event. So there's a combination of both, and that happens all the time to try to, ensure some additional security. So again, but to provide any additional information on how do we expand, how do we currently incentivize or make sure that we reduce that number on a yearly basis, that's something I would take back to the chief to discuss with the leadership of the department.
Thank you.
Thank you. Send that to public safety. All those in, Councilor King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick questions. The 650 unfilled details through the chair, that includes internal and external, or is that just internal?
That's all.
Okay, and what's the number for unfilled details that are internal? Are we 100% compliance for the city initiated stuff?
We don't track it that specifically, but I would say that internal details would have unfilled details as well.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like an order, get a report back on the unfilled internal details. That'd be much appreciated. I think I have a pending matter or order that I put forward asking for it. I think basically the characterization and prioritization of detail assigning and detail filling. I don't recall when I did that, so I'll just make another motion that we get that report as well. I think that there's perhaps some gains that we can make as a city in terms of safety and things of that. I know that, there's only so much bandwidth, and these are voluntary. I'm assuming some of them are, most of them are voluntary details. And there's some collective bargaining matters at play as well. But I do appreciate my colleagues' questions regarding things pertaining to flaggers and the like. I know, seeing
Yeah,
what's been
I'm
going
still
on
trying
at
to
our
find this
schools,
body camera thing.
we know that our crosswalk
And
guards
I
are
just
not
found
allowed to direct
I'm in the
traffic.
sub
It's not part of
awards
their
of
job.
2022 report
There's been a lot of
for
matters
ARPA funding.
before the
And
council,
I just
before
found a
traffic department
$3
pertaining to our schools.
million
There's a matter that's
sub
going
award to no
down
one
to
in
committee,
particular that was for in-house
regarding
accountant and legal
establishing
consultants.
our school zone signage and ordinance.
I
That's a
gotta
response
just
to
add,
my
I'm gonna
request
add an overlay here.
on the council floor a few weeks ago. That work was already initiated as well. But I know that if there's a way that we can get folks
Sub award
to
obligation
help out,
$3 million
there might be some cost saving measures there, Mr.
beginning
Chairman. And I would echo my colleague
October
around
of 2021.
the realization that
The subrecipient is the city
there
of
may
Worcester,
be some
and the description is for in-house accountant and legal
concerns if we're having
So 500,000,
internal
right?
details
That's
requested,
three-
and if they're not filled,
No.
there might be some
sub award
liability
obligation.
concerns, Mr. Chairman.
Wait, no, that is right.
I don't know
3
exactly how
million
those are ranked.
divided by
rated.
6
Would
years.
like a report back.
5
know
years, I
this
mean.
will go to municipal operations. And
I
I'm quite
don't
sure
think
that
it.
they will determine if
maybe.
there's any cost saving measures relative to overtime
What the
in
fuck
general.
is that?
And overtime, because I think that's in their committee as well. In addition to the police aspect of it, but all of it in totality. Mr. Chairman, also as part of unfilled details, just again, a breakdown by department as well for the internal detail unfilled list. We'd love to see that as well when it comes out for all the departments to go down to municipal operations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we'll get formal report. Those in favor, also order. We'll send that to Council Toomey.
Could we have that ready for the next subcommittee meeting? I'm unfortunately going to be away for the one in first week in October, but we're trying to reschedule that. So
We'll try.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll send that report to public safety. Those in favor, opposed.
I'm opposed, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to speak to that. This is an interdepartmental matter that impacts engineering, Department of Public Works. What else we have listed here? Bureau of Engineers, sewer, streets, lighting, Department of Transition and Mobility, et cetera. This is municipal operation matter. There are already items in municipal operations pertaining to overtime across the city. And over the last 2 terms, we've had a number of items before municipal operations. This isn't simply a police matter, Mr. Chairman. This is about the entirety of our departments that rely and request these details, Mr. Chairman. I would ask that when that comes out, that goes to municipal operations.
It's germane to this report, so I'd appreciate that we could look at.
Well, the report hasn't come back yet. This report's going to public safety.
Right.
Then we can decide when the other reports come back.
Mr. Chairman, can I go to both?
Say the what?
Can it go to both?
No, we do one committee because this goes to public safety. Falls under the rules of the Council of Public Safety. So.
Opposed.
Okay. Okay, so roll call.
Council Bergman?
Yes.
Council Caloria?
Yes.
Council Haxhiaj? Council King?
This is the public safety, right?
Correct.
No.
Council Mara Carlson? Council Nayan?
No.
Council Ada?
Yes.
Council Pasillo?
Yes.
Council Russell?
Yes.
Council Toomey?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Okay, we are on Yeah. Okay, sure. So we have Department of Administration Finance. We have Transfer Information Communication for the fiscal year 25 financial update as of July 31st and in the second report as of August 31st. Collect those collectively. So MO. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. We have finance items. Mr. Manager, wants to make a clarification.
Through the chair to the council, I just want to make a clarification. Last week, there was a question that was asked by Councilor Bergman related to the city contributing dollars, if the city contributed any dollars to the WRTA. I want to clarify that because the city, as part of the cherry sheet, the city receives a community assessment. We're one of 37 communities that receives a community assessment, just like the education component is we're assessed a certain amount of dollars that comes to the city that then goes to the WRTA. And we're looking in FY25 budget, the Worcester Regional Transit Assessment is $4.1 million. So it's reflected in our budget as $4.1 million, but it's an assessment that comes as part of the state allocation, the state aid that comes to the city through the community assessment process. So I wanted to clarify that because I know I got up and mentioned that we do not contribute to the WRTA. And so
You don't.
we do not contribute directly, but indirectly there is a contribution similar to how the
That's
schools
not a
and the education
contribution.
component is an assessment that comes to us, and then we then send the dollars to those entities.
Oh, come on, please. That really clears.
Perfect. Councilor
I
Bergman?
just want to thank the city manager for clarifying that. I think there was some confusion. I appreciate the clarification. I noticed some people had questions and asked me about it, and I wanted to make sure that the accurate information came out. I know some posted on social media ran with it as if that was some sort of a oddball question that I asked that I should have known the answer to. So now the full answer is out, and I appreciate the information.
Oh, yeah.
I look forward to getting more information on my order from last week. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Bergman. So we're going to take finance items 9.35A through C, 9.37A through C, adopt on the roll call.
I was wondering why I got an email from Gary Rose.
Councilor Bergman?
Yes.
Councilor Calorio?
Yes.
Councilor Haxhiaj? Councilor King?
Well, thanks, Mo. You just gave me
Yes.
another thing to
Councilor
write about
Carlson?
tomorrow.
Councilor Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilor Hader?
Yes.
Councilor Pasillo?
Yes.
Councilor Russell?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes, recommend the adoption of an ordinance to extend the Worcester
I don't know if
Housing
anybody is
Authority fee
watching yet,
waiver.
but Tim Walsh looks
Motion
like
to
a
advertise the
literal
proposed
deer in the
ordinance.
headlight. And
Roll
J.D.
call.
Vance with his smoky eyes looks like he can smell.
Councilor
blood.
Bergman?
Yes.
Councilor
Uh-oh.
Calorio?
Really?
Councilor
Yeah.
Haxhiaj? Councilor King?
Yes.
Councilor Carlson? Councilor Nguyen?
Yes.
Councilor Hader?
Yes.
Councilor Pasillo?
Yes.
Councilor Russell?
Yes.
Councilor Toomey?
Yes.
And Mayor Petty?
Yes. Transmitting information communication relative to the fiscal 25 through 29 strategic plan. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to quickly do a quick presentation and give you a background.
Oh,
Kind
no.
of go over the mission and vision and values and the priority. goals.
No,
What's
he's
next
doing a
related to the
presentation on the
strategic
master
plan.
plan.
One of the things that I've been involved in since I was working in the previous administration was creating a strategic plan and creating a visioning exercise for the administration and their municipality
visioning
in terms of
exercise.
operations, creating
That's the sequel
goals,
to
objectives,
Highlander.
and before you, at every single over the past 5, if not 6 years, at every budget process, there is a department development plans that are included in those in the budget, which include goals and objectives and measures of departments. That is all due to the strategic planning that happened back in the previous administration. So it's time for an update. Part of the conversations that I've had with the council and the request of the council to listen to the community, get community feedback, conversations about that has happened here in terms of what we need to do better and how to improve. This strategic plan is going to lay out a framework in terms of how we want to do that and what goals and objectives that we need to measure ourselves on the following years. And so that's a little bit of the background of where we are, where we've come from.
Is this going to be a
in terms
long
of where we
presentation?
want to go moving forward? So what's the purpose? The purpose is to guide the municipality
It'd be
for the
painful.
next 5 years. This was inspired
Play
by
a lot.
residents. We did surveys, we did focus groups, we did stakeholder groups, etc. to try to gain as much information. And then we utilize information on all the multiple plans that we have in the city, from the Green Worcester
use the
plan to the
occasion of-
Worcester
would you
Annex plan,
support the strike
cultural
from
plan, you name it.
Iran?
We've taken a lot of that information and feedback, and the department has been able to provide some goals and objectives related to that.
They're gonna
This is an
get
opportunity
fucking
for
hammered
us
on
to
everything that
change,
happened
an
today.
opportunity for progress, and look in the ways that we can adapt to the needs that this community has and some of the circumstances that we're currently facing as a city and as a community. So
He's
this
gonna
is
do
going
the
to
full
align all those work plans to try to fulfill multiple
I've already read this report.
plans.
It's
On the next slide here, there is, I think you two slides more. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. There you go. This here just
That's
gives
four.
you an idea, a picture of what the community engagement looked like. On the next slide here, the next couple of slides, it identifies what the mission and vision for the city. So the mission is to deliver exceptional public service and municipal operations that are rooted in equity, innovation, and integrity, and centered on people. That's something that we've heard clearly from many residents and community partners. Again, we hear that again tonight, so we want to make sure we build upon that. The vision is, as a city manager, my vision is to be the best managed city. We want to make sure that I and my administration manage the needs of our community, the needs of the council in the best way possible. And to do that, not just to be the best in the state, but we should be the best in this country. And that's what we've alluded to here. Regardless of any background of situation that people are in, we want to give folks those opportunities. Our value system that is rooted in terms of who we are as a municipality are rooted in diversity, equity, inclusion, innovation, professionalism, resident focus, evidence-based decision-making, excellence, collaboration, everything that we as a body, as an administration, and also as council have communicated multiple times through our engagements. The priority goals, there's 6 of them. The first one and foremost is the public health and safety. We know that a city's primary responsibility is to its residents and public health and safety. And this is something that it's non-negotiable. It's something that is extremely important. One of the special focuses on this plan is going to focus on combating overdose and substance use disorder. We know that that's at the forefront of our community, but also impacting not only us here in the city, but is also impacting the state and also the nation. So that's a special focus that we need to pay attention to. Again, the next priority area is affordable neighborhoods and reduce homelessness. We know
Bill, have you been paying
affordable
attention to the
neighborhoods is the number
national
one priority and
stats
one of the
on
priorities here in the
overdose
community, and we've
that they're
talked about it multiple
plummeting,
times.
just like
including
violent
tonight.
crime, in a way that's
We want to make
confusing the
sure
hell out of
that
everyone
we
who
find
studies
strategies and
those
ways that
numbers.
we could be better to reduce
I've
homelessness
been
and
starting to see a bunch of
units
federal
to our
or
community.
national and federal data presents
Part of that, our
pop up,
special
and
focus
it
is
looks like-
affordable housing.
Yeah, it's just like
Our
it's
chief development
falling off a
officer has
cliff.
submitted a housing strategy that we want to continue to enhance and build upon that.
What our reporting
that
looks like,
includes
Worcester,
public
we're seeing the
policy,
same.
housing production, et cetera. And this body has done a lot of public policy around housing strategies.
I'll send you
And-
some
and
links.
So we look forward to
thanks.
continuing to work on that aspect, again, to change and grow our affordable housing stock here in the city. Another conversation that comes to fruition, and just today I was having another conversation with a councilor, is clean city initiatives, beautification projects, making sure that we stay in the forefront. There's been a lot of conversations in this council here related to litter, to business districts that needs to be improved when it comes to trash, when it comes to overgrowth, when it comes to nuisance, et cetera. And so a special focus here is the Quality of Life team. They've done a tremendous job and continue to do a lot of great work in the community, but we want to continue to figure out ways that we can strategize to improve and beautify our neighborhoods, and they're tasked to do so. Economic growth. We cannot achieve any of this without economic growth. We need the tax-based dollars to increase. We need to continue to work with the commercial space, commercial in our small businesses and large businesses and our private industries to continue to grow and boost the economy, innovation, and also enhance our community development efforts. No city can be successful without increasing that economic growth in terms of the financial being in a financial state. And then that comes down to high-performing government and strong financial health. This body here, many years ago, voted for the financial integrity plan that has accelerated us to a place to be financially healthy. However, we are coming to a place where there are pressure points that we need to take advantage, that we need to be take consideration of, and build strong financial strategies for that. And we want to make sure that we are we're enhancing and implementing sustainable and efficient systems across our financial aspects and all of our high-performing government and departments so that we can deliver the best service to the public. One of that, and the special focus around that, is creating a culture of equity and belonging. That involves people, involves our employees. Our employees make up over 2,000 employees make up the body here in the city and the municipality, and we need to make sure that they're protected. We need to make sure that they have the resources to be able to succeed, because at the end of the day, what they do is what impacts the community, and we want to make sure that they feel like they belong here and that they're part of our family. Another special focus is communications. One of the biggest things that I've heard, and including so in my evaluation, was lack of communication with either the council or the public, and we want to continue to improve upon that. We want to make sure that we're providing the best information in a timely manner, understanding that we live in a world of social media, and sometimes information gets out before we even get to be able to put out the information. So we want to make sure that we're on top of this and communicating effectively in many different ways. And last but not least is investment in quality education. We know that our infrastructure in our schools is declining. We need to continue to invest long-term in the funding mechanisms to preserve and update our existing buildings. We need to figure out ways that we can either work with state or federal partners to do so. This council body has voted to continue to invest in that through new growth and any free cash allocations. So again, this is something that's extremely not only important to the municipality, but also important to the schools. So what's next? What's next is that these are the hierarchy goals and objectives that are through the strategic plan. The departments now are tasked to create, as part of the departmental development plans that live within the budget, are to create more specific strategies and tasks of how they're going to achieve these goals and objectives. And so they will be coming forward in the FY26 budget with specific strategies and tasks of how they're going to achieve these overall goals and objectives of the city. As part of that, one of the things that has been a primary conversation, not only in this council, but also with our staff and with our bargaining units, it's individual evaluations with our employees. Part of the success of the city is to evaluate the success of our employees, but also how the evaluation of employee is tied into the departmental plans, and then also tied in to the overall strategic plan. We will commit to submitting annual reports. We commit to submitting annual reports to the council on update statuses of what's happening within the strategic plan. And then each department cabinet member also has a tracking sheet that we created to ensure that we track progress on every single item that has been laid out in this strategic plan. Again, this is something that's been in the making for a long time. I want to give credit to our in-house communications team that has worked diligently on not only putting the data together and putting the content and putting the documents together in the book that you see in front of you. I want to thank also the cabinet members for their time dedicated to really create and provide the goals and objectives. I want to thank the community and the residents of the city for their contributions and their feedback to council, your feedback as well in private conversations or in the surveys to this strategic plan. And then last but not least, I also want to give a big shout out to Hung Nguyen. He's the one who really led the effort in our office in creating, thinking of the vision of this document, working every day on every aspect of the report. So again, this has been a complete team effort. And so we're very proud for this document, and we look forward to continuously working with the council and making sure that we're adhering to these goals and objectives. And again, a strategic plan is not something, a document that I want to live on my shelf and make it look like it's all pretty and get all dusty within a couple of weeks.
I took some notes.
This strategic plan is something that I strongly believe in, and it's something that, again, will be an organic document and will be an ongoing conversation. And there's been times that maybe a strategy or goal that's laid out right now may have to be and may have to.
On housing, you said update municipal zoning to facilitate more housing types and residential uses.
Ideas that we want to move
to
forward
accommodate the growing population.
It's a living document, and I look forward to, again, working with the council.
And then also to
achieving
modify
all these
zoning
goals
to
and
encourage the development of housing and services for people
Thank you
experiencing
for the report.
for homelessness.
Excellent report. And
Both of those, I was like, huh, that's pretty
Assistant City
interesting.
Manager and
That made it in there,
about the MO, but Councilmember Carlson
didn't say it in the report. Wonder why.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, prior to doing so, I just want to say how much I appreciate this report, because I was very happy to see it's all about things we've talked about and things that the community has talked about. And it goes back to day one when you were over at North High School, one of the first community meetings. And I think it's very well put together, and there's a lot of information in here, and look forward to a lot of these initiatives coming to fruition for all of us. But again, just wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that was put in here, because I think it's laid out very nicely for us to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you. So send that to Councilor King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too want to reflect back that this includes a lot of what is discussed here on the council floor, what we hear in the community, what the city manager and his team have heard in the community from their department heads, from their staff. And I think that's well reflected. One of the latter comments that were made about employee performance reviews. If you could just clarify, because I know some of the conversations that I've had with the city manager have been around the lack thereof for department heads. And we have department heads that are responsible for our public health and safety, for addressing social ills and public health matters, keeping our city clean, the economy, our financial health, our investment in education, et cetera. So through the chair to the administration, can you just clarify, will this also include the department heads? And if yes, when is there a time frame to get that process going for those department heads through the chair?
Mr. Manager.
Through the chair to the council, yes, one of the components that I've been very intentional since I took this opportunity as to be the city manager is employee evaluation. I've worked in many different agencies and industries where that has been at the forefront on an annual basis, sometimes quarterly basis, et cetera. And so that's something that I've been very intentional about, and that's why I've negotiated that with unions, labor unions, to ensure that we start to open that conversation and open the door for employee evaluations. But employee evaluation, you can't just evaluate an employee if the employee doesn't know what the goals and objectives that they're trying to meet, and what does that mean, and what does that look like, and what vision it is. So that's why we try to lay this strategic plan out to create a framework of what the vision is. Departments will develop their goals, and then we're going to include employee evaluation. Employee evaluations includes cabinet members, includes everyone. Top down, I get evaluated, and so we want to make sure that everybody gets evaluated underneath as well.
Nothing of
so
substance.
we've been working
only things that will anger
with
you.
HR. We've met with outside agencies who provide this professionally and have different tools and
I'm
ways
still trying
in
to
which
figure out
we can
whether
apply
these are promoting
employee
body camera.
evaluation. There's about 500
going well.
employees who are non-union members that we have the opportunity to engage them much quicker and create a process for that. And so all
And it
of
was
that
right,
is being
absolute
discussed right
horrible
now
timing to
with
do
the current
That's really the only thing you
chief,
missed was all the
the
perfectly
HR
aligned
team and
striations
my
in Eric there
administration, my
moved
team
from
in the city
his
manager's
right,
office.
our left to
Right
our,
now, we haven't established
our
a
right,
timeline
his
on when
left.
we want to implement these employee evaluations.
The what?
The
my
little
goal is to, as
striations
soon
in
as
his hair, the way he
possible,
combed his hair back.
have something.
You didn't
Oh,
see
very
that?
nice.
They all shifted from one side to the other
Our
while he was
strategy
talking.
to implement employee evaluation.
That's pretty sick.
For the success not only of overall the city, but also the success of the employee, because an employee oftentimes sees an evaluation too as a bad thing, but it's actually a powerful thing because it helps to develop them. It helps
So
them
envious
to
of Eric's
also
hairline.
understand what areas of growth and areas that they should be able to upskill.
You're
them.
envious of everybody's hairline on camera
Opportunities
right now.
to succeed. And then also opportunities for us to know what that potential increase or promotions or things may look for, and we can always reflect back on those evaluations. So that's something that I've been very intentional, and that's something that we've laid out in the strategic plan that we're going to be working towards over the next months and years.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate that. I know, again, we've had those discussions prior to you being Assistant City Manager.
Thank goodness
acting
George and
least
Mo
has
are back
been,
on camera.
Had
Feel better about
discussions
myself.
with this with your predecessor. And it's important because when we as a council evaluate the city manager, part of that process is to see how your oversight, city manager, of each department is and how you measure efficacy. You know, we have concerns in the community about potholes. We have concerns about, you know, how we're dealing with all sorts of things. And if we're not measuring it, are we really valuing that public service provision, Mr. Chairman? I would like a timeline by way of an order, Mr. Chairman, for the non-unionized positions. I'm glad the manager brought that up. That's exactly where I was going. So I know that should be a priority, and I would ask that the priority of priorities be with those department heads. We have to be able to measure efficacy as a city. I know the city manager must be able to do that. We don't have any role in that, but this is a big step forward. I think for us as a city, and I don't want the public to think that all these other things are something that I don't take seriously. There's issues in here pertaining to day centers for our unsheltered and unhoused. There's matters in here pertaining to public health, economic growth, et cetera. And I know that when this goes to committee, those will be discussed in full detail, Mr. Chairman. But I would like to file that as a way of an order. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for putting great work on the report and for Council King's order and Councilor Basillo, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo my colleagues in thanking the administration. It's obvious how hard people worked on this. This is a really great document. I really appreciate the municipal
excited for when
government
Jenny is
partner
in
part of it, so we can kind of see where to direct our
So she can be weird
questions or
again?
who we need to work with. And
Yeah.
it's just, I was so happy to get this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So the motions, and Councilor Ojeda.
Yeah, same. Share the same comments as Councilor Priscilla. I just want to make it known that I really want to be involved in this as well, especially when it comes to the educational part and the economic growth. And
he's
also
got a
the
lot of
housing area.
ideas about
Being at District 4, there's a lot that I'm dealing with.
fire hydrants
Pretty sure
and
you and I have talked
how
about
do they
it.
work.
And I want to be able to make sure
Anybody
that some of the
wants to
concerns
explain
things that are going
magnets?
on in our district that we're
These line and
addressing
make
them and trying to
this.
find ways to make sure that we're okay. Yes, the city is growing, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of the ones that are here. And not that we're not, and not that this doesn't say it, but I just want to make sure that, you know, when I get those phone calls from the residents about, you know, what's going on, that I know that, you know, the city manager and his team, you know, have their back as well with what's coming into our city. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. The motion, the referral, all those in favor, opposed, so ordered. Okay.
Oh, please end this. Put us out.
We are on 10A. Motion is to send to the support of the planning board. Motion to accept. All those in favor, opposed, so
Oh, God,
ordered.
we still have to talk about
10B,
fucking
refer to economic development. All those in
Mr.
favor,
Chairman, I want to
opposed.
recuse myself on 10B.
10B, please note that Councilor Russell has recused himself on 10B. So motion is to send to economic development. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. 10C to 10D is referred to the Public Works Committee. All those in favor, opposed, so ordered. To be ordained on the roll call, amending salary allowances on 11A and 11B.
Metal detectors
Take those
next.
collectively on the roll call.
That should be the last
Councilor
thing.
Bregman,
Yes.
Councilor Calorio,
Yes.
Councilor Haxhiaj, Councilor King,
Yes.
Councilor Merrill Carlson,
Yeah.
Councilor Nguyen,
Yes.
Councilor Ojeda,
Yes.
Councilor Basillo,
Yes.
Councilor Russell,
Yes.
Councilor Toomey,
Yes.
Mayor Petty.
Yes. 12A, Councilor Russell.
Mr. Chairman, I asked that this be held again pending
Okay.
some information from the manager next week.
Okay, so motion is to hold under privilege for one more time.
Is that the metal detectors?
Who's first? Motion to file.
But you can hold under privilege. Hold under privilege.
So the motion, Councilor Russell motion goes first. If that fails, then we have a motion to file. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Chairman, is that a motion to file the item relating to securing the building?
Correct.
Is that what Council King was asking?
Yes, 12A.
Thank you.
So the first motion is from Councilor Russell, the table under privilege. That fails, and we go to motion to file. So need 4 votes to table under privilege.
That's good.
Roll call.
Council Bergman,
Yes.
Council Calorio,
Yes.
Council Haxhiaj, Council King,
No.
Council Carlson,
Yeah.
Council Nguyen,
No.
Council Ojeda,
Yes.
Council Basillo,
Yes.
Council Russell,
Yes.
Council Toomey,
Yes.
and Mayor Petty.
Yes. So the motion is to adjourn. Those in favor, opposed, so ordered.
So he wants more info in that the city. Last week he said the city manager is going to come up with a comprehensive safety plan for City Hall.
Right.
So
Cool.
So we'll see what that entails. It probably entails metal detectors because George Russell wants to hold his order about metal detectors until he gets this report that he seems to know more than the rest of us about.
Yeah, saying I'm going to put them in no matter what the city council says. So
Right. Yeah.
don't take a bad vote.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Frickin' sharks with frickin' laser beams on there. Yeah, that was a punishing waste of time.
Yep.
As always, every week.
Yep.
This one had the added flavor of telling a bunch of leaders of our communities of color to go fuck themselves in the most boring way possible. That was really special. It was really good. It was really good the way they made Peter Dunn do that. They're like, bring out the most boring technocrat we have to tell all these black women to go fuck themselves. And he did a
This'll
really good
do
job.
it.
He did an amazing job at that. He really did.
You guys want to watch this bus video?
Yeah.
There's no sound.
That's okay.
So this is Park Ave going north.
Yeah.
With Walgreens on the left side, BT's up ahead on the left. There's a school bus.
So sick.
Bombing down.
Hey, you gotta get those kids to school in one piece or not.
You know? Just wilding.
Was that a Worcester bus? I couldn't read it going by.
I can't tell.
There's a line of buses, and that's heading towards Foley Stadium, so it's
right
probably for a game. I'm just wondering if they're out of towners before we start making fun of.
Oh yeah, they were late. They were late for the game. You know.
Hold on, let's do some.
It's a AA transportation. I don't know if ours say Worcester Public Schools anymore, or if we still use AA buses.
I don't know.
Great question. I'll have to do some digging on that. Well, yeah, We'll check the Foley schedule, see what games are there today. Very funny. Only 87 comments on the post. I'm sure it's everyone being completely normal. Hell yeah. Well, hey, listen. Thanks everybody for sticking around tonight. Through an absolutely brutal meeting.
Sure
we're on a
was.
brutal day in a brutal world.
Yeah. Now you can all go watch the vice presidential debate, which will sure to be just as bad.
That's worse.
From the couple seconds I caught.
Yeah.
While zoning out during this meeting, it seems pretty bad. But yeah.
So just to reiterate, this weekend.
Oh yeah, Saturday night. Come on down. Boogie for Boobies, breast cancer research, raising money, and we got cool shirts too.
Yes.
It's good.
Look
The
at those
Glitter
things.
Boys are playing at Rouse, and they are very fun.
The best.
Retro turntable DJs. Very cool.
Yeah. Thursday night, we're showing Hubie Halloween at New Tradition. Actually, just while during the meeting, got word John from Mamaroo, he's got a family emergency that came up. He's not going to be able to do a menu for the movie, but what he wants to do and what we're gonna pull off is we're gonna eat a bunch of pizzas. We're gonna call it a pizza potluck. We're gonna tell everyone to bring a weird pizza down and share pizzas. So bring something weird, everybody. I'm gonna try and find the most freaky pizza in the city of Worcester to bring down. But still gonna watch the movie. It'll be free for the pizza will be free. At least for we'll buy a bunch with John, and then just buy some drinks at New Tradition. Get a coffee, get a 6 or 7 beers. I don't know. I really do think that watching this is just going to turn into a drinking game as I'm looking at all the things that happen in the movie and trying to come up with quotes. It's just going to be a drinking game. So it'll be fun. And we hope to see you all there. And, as usual, please make sure that you're subscribed to billshaner.substack.com. I cannot find the overlay. Here it is. WorcesterSucks.email at Worcester_sucks. Make sure that you're following us at Woot Nanny Comedy, at WCT3000, and subscribe here to our Twitch channel. We appreciate all you guys that have been subscribed for almost a year. We've been doing this. We've been making a little bit of money on Twitch, and it really helps us run the show. So thank you very much. Buy a t-shirt if you want from our WCT3K.storeenvy.com collection. I had a new idea for a set of t-shirts that I think I want to pull off soon. So keep an eye out for those. I think we'll probably pull pretty much everything down and put up a bunch of new shirts. So follow us. Come hang out this weekend. And be safe out there, everybody. Turn on your Iron Dome. And we will see you next Tuesday, everybody. Goodbye.